listening to Fresh Take.
You are listening to the Fresh Take Network.
What it do? Welcome to a Fresh Take Couch Potato collabo with myself, Joshua, Adam, William Arbuthut, voice of the Calgary Dinos, and much other things. And my co-host that we both called the lead of the Okotoks Dogs playoffs, but you know him from the Fan 960 and Couch Potato Diaries, the one, the only, the legend, Peter Klein.
Thank you. You are far too kind. Yes, I kind of jack of all trades, master of none. I do a bunch of stuff. I don't know if I've mastered any of it, but I get to talk a bunch, so it's fun.
I was debating coming on here. I'm like, I could list all of Peter and I's accolades from this year, but I think that's longer than the list that I gave us. So I'm like, maybe I'll just go with the tippity top of what we have individually, and then what we worked on together this year, and then we can just get right into it.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Again, there's a mix here of Fresh Take and Couch Potato. Both these will be put out on both of those streams this year. Really quick before we get to the categories, Peter, is two guys that do sports podcasts and obviously work in sports radio as well. What do you thought about the year in 20? I thought it was a good year. It wasn't one of those like, I'll never forget the year in 2023 in sports. It was a very good year, but not a like remarkable year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I found going through all of these, like there's obviously standouts in everything, but there's very few like, oh my God, right? Like we'll get to some of those obviously, but it was the first year that felt from start to finish like normal again, right?
Yeah.
Like 2022 was kind of there, but you still had a bit of a lingering whatever. But this year it was like, okay, everything's back, everything's ready to go. We've like anything that you have needed to take from the pandemic times, you have figured out. So it feels like now we're kind of back into that normalcy a little bit. So it feels like we've course corrected and we're back on track. But yeah, like it was a fine year. There was obviously some stuff that was appalling. That's every year. But there was also some really, really cool stuff as well. So yeah, it was of all the years that I've lived through, this was definitely one of them. But I don't know if we're going to look back and, oh my God, the wonder that was 2023. Yeah, it was fine. It was fine.
And it's different from the wrestling one we have coming up where I was like, yeah, there's a lot.
Yes. Yeah. We've the pro wrestling world has lived about a decade this year. That's like we've crammed a bunch in. I can only imagine what 2024 has to offer.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. But so we go to this year in 2023. So we start off with the up and comer. So this can be anything, really. This can be, a college athlete you saw coming. This can be a guy that, hasn't even started playing. That, we used to call this a Scott Roblin Award, who couldn't make it this year, because Scott would find someone that was 16 or 17 in hockey and nail it every year. And that's one of the things, if people don't know, unfortunately, some hackers got into our past sheets and deleted everything. But he called a 16-year-old Cal McCarr, for example. He called a 15-year-old Connor Bedard. He saw these coming before they really hit. So it can always be something like that. And you and I have kind of seen some of these guys on our own in some worlds as well. So I'm really interested for you of going down this route. So who is the up and comer for you, Peter?
Yeah, I didn't go quite the like deep dark recesses of minor hockey past or anything like that. I'm pretty sure this person's going to be a star, but I'm about the 1 millionth person to recognize it. And she'll come up again, but it's Caitlin Clark. This is superstar coming into the WNBA from the college ranks. Like was phenomenal last year and has just decided this year, like, oh, no one can stop me. Feels like as much of a sure thing coming from the college ranks and has really almost transcended things now from a women's college basketball standpoint. I think she's averaging over 30 a game and has turned into a legitimate mainstream star already, and has made the women's March Madness Final Four, whatever they technically call it, has made it much must watch. And I think for the second year in a row, made it kind of better than the men's tournament. And 100%. That's I think like there's a lot of other players that are involved in that, but she is the face of it, I think, for sure.
All respect to the Angel Reeses of the world, but we don't know
Mhm.
who Angel Reese is without the feud that she has with Caitlin Page
Yeah.
backers. That's going to make this year such more exciting knowing with
Yes.
Page, and it's been a highlight of what the women's side hasn't had is it needs stars. I mean, the men need stars too. The men haven't had stars as well. That's why they are begging USC to pick it up right now and get into this NCAA tournament because they want Isaiah Collier and more importantly, Bronny James and Rodman to be
Yeah.
part of this upcoming tournament. Caitlin and Paige, I both considered, and they are definitely at the list and definitely at the forefront in changing the game. I mean, I think with all respect to the women that we saw this week, the highlighted volleyball on ABC. I think
Mm-hmm.
because of what Caitlin and Paige and all those women have done in NCAA women's basketball, I think that was a big part of the reason that we got to have volleyball on ABC this week because they're like, hey, women's sports, what a concept. Maybe we should broadcast that.
Also, volleyball when it's played at a high level is
So good.
stupid fun to watch. Like I played in high school. I would say it fell well short of being played at a high level. But our coach brought us to watch some college games at the University of Regina, and you watch that, and it's like it is such a blast. And if you know what's going on, like it's ridiculous the talent level that is out there. So I don't know, like if I would be investing in the National Volleyball League or anything like that, but you put it on TV, I'll watch it. It's fun.
Yeah, as someone that's done a few broadcasts of it and was kind of not sure to do it when I did that. Number one, the community is so awesome. The players are
Yeah.
so awesome. And the crowds. You want to go to crowds in Canada? Volleyball does better than basketball for sure in this country. As someone that is a big part of basketball in Alberta, trust me, volleyball does better crowds. So much I love to see the better basketball crowds. And some nights it is better than hockey too.
Yeah.
And so it's really grown. But Caitlin Clark, great pick. I was almost debating going with Paige to counteract you, but I went with someone that I think is also just going to be a unbelievable, sure Hall of Famer level star, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh yeah.
Where this guy's going to probably be number one on any dynasty fantasy draft next year. It's just kind of ticking away at Ohio State this year, waiting to see where he can go. And that's a team that already has another star wide out there as well. But Marvin, it just kind of seemed this year is like we're just kind of spinning the wheels, waiting for him and Caleb and Drake. It was just kind of like, yeah, we're just kind of waiting for them to make their jump. But out of all those guys where, Carolina's season kind of fell off near the end there, some tough losses that the Tar Heels had. Caleb, we've had all the criticisms and dissection of him, and it's only going to get worse next little bit.
Yeah.
It just seems like Marvin just steamed along. It was like, yeah, this guy's going to be really, really good. And whoever has him might automatically have the best receiver in the NFL next year.
Yeah, you look at it like right now. I think it's Chicago at 1. They're definitely going quarterback. Patriots would be at 2. They're definitely going quarterback. And then Arizona at 3. Yeah, why not? Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray seems like a pretty good pairing. And it's like this franchise-altering offensive player could potentially just fall into your lap and kind of kickstart things out in Arizona. So yeah, that's a great pick. While this draft, I think, is going to be the lead up to it is going to be defined by the quarterbacks because we've all watched the NFL. We need an infusion of good quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah.
I think that the story of this draft afterward and for years to come is going to be, we just got one of the best receivers in the league coming out of this draft.
Yeah. Next up, we go to breakthrough athlete. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be an athlete that, all of a sudden became most improved. I look at this in different categories. I looked at it as most improved, but also like, holy crap, they are a super duper star now. So it's either or category.
Yeah.
So for me on that side, I went with SGA because this is the guy that is probably the lead candidate for MVP as we record on this late December date right now. Helped Canada get to a bronze medal and was arguably the best player at FIBA. All respect to Dennis Schroeder and everyone that surrounded that tournament that made it to the finals. I would say SGA was the best player in that entire FIBA tournament. And
100%.
even down the stretch of last year was one of the best and is a guy that is changing the culture of Canada basketball hoops and changing the culture in Oklahoma City of going from being a developmental team to being potentially a contender if they get the right big. So I'm going with SGA.
Yeah, like they look like one of the exciting teams to like going forward now. Out like Oklahoma City, it got people excited about Canadian basketball. That was on at 6 in the morning, so that was really nice to see. I'm happy you went first because I had two written down. I had SGA, so I'll go with the other one to mix it up a little bit. I don't know how much this league is going to come up today. I'm going to the Canadian Football League, and I'm going to Chad Kelly,
Nice.
quarterback for the Toronto Argonauts. He comes in the Grey Cup last year and wins and leads the Argos. While the playoffs didn't go very well for Toronto, he leads the Boatmen to one of the best regular seasons we have had in a very, very long time. They were so dominant, and he was so clearly the MLP this year. And he's someone who has, I think, embraced playing in Canada. Like, I don't. We're not hearing about like, oh yeah, he's 1 year and then he's going to go try to be on a practice squad down in the States. He's embraced being a Canadian Football League player. He's embraced being a Toronto Argo, which is what that city needs. It brought a pretty good playoff gate to Toronto, which I don't know if anyone was ever expecting. And he was the CFL this year. Everything revolved around him. And to come out of that in year one as a starter was really, really impressive for me.
Yeah, as me, this is one of the reasons this year I normally did best NFL player. That's why I did best football player, because to encompass all sides that we had. And as someone that doesn't follow the CFL as much as I'd like to, he's a guy that stood out to me all year. Whenever I did turn into a game and watch an Argos game, he's definitely someone that stood out to me. And, the CFL, again, that's a league that is trying to create stars, trying to find stars, trying to push their league to another level again, trying to get more viewers in. And you did feel this year, you kind of talked about at the top there, kind of getting back to normalcy, post-pandemic, trying to find your way. Chad Kelly is one of those examples of bringing a star into a big city like Toronto and to the greater CFL and kind of showcasing what he can have.
Yeah, and you see, like attendance is up. I think in 7 of the 9 markets in the CFL this year. I'm not saying that was all Chad Kelly, but it's nice to have that team at the top and that star player at the tippity top of the league really embrace things. And that they've been trying to figure out Toronto for forever, and this feels like a good start there. Anyway, a win would have been even better. He does stumble in the East Final against the eventual Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes, but this was a great opening act for Chad Kelly for sure.
Well, especially for the CFL losing a guy like Nathan Rourke to the NFL, and he was in the makings to be the next big superstar. It helped that Chad kind of led the next way, so that's a great pick.
Yeah, and to not only Rourke going to the NFL, but then going to the NFL to be on a practice roster. Like that is always such a gut punch when the guy is so clearly the best in the CFL, and he gets claimed off of waivers by the New England Patriots, but he's going to spend about 90% of the season on the practice squad. That is a bit of a downer, and it is a bit of a gun punch when you're trying to be like, no, see that the CFL is legitimate, to have that sort of thing happen. Yeah. So it's nice again to have that embracing by Kelly here.
So this next award, it's not really an award. I only did this based off your tweet about 2-3 hours ago.
Okay.
And it's the Joe Flacco Memorial Award for Best Comeback Player, which I think is Joe Flacco, just in the sense of, because he's maybe my fantasy quarterback now in fantasy, and he's saving teams' fantasy quarterbacks. And it's a deeper conversation for another day, but it's going to be a major part of helping this Browns team. Has got a cameo coming into the shot here.
Yeah, dog making an appearance here.
Very good. Browns, dogs. Heard the Flacco talk.
Yeah, heard us talking about the dog pound. So yeah.
Yeah, again, not an official award, but just kind of the hit on your tweet. I was like, you know what? If there is a comeback player, it might just be Joe Flacco for everything he's doing.
Yeah, like off of the couch and into a playoff race, right? Like he was doing nothing a couple of weeks ago, and now he pops back in. So I think that this is very much a deserving award for him. Just off of the top of my head, other ones like in F1, Daniel Ricciardo, who was a fan favorite off of the Drive to Survive, he just kind of popped in the middle of the season and then broke his hand and left and then came back again. So he gets an honorable mention for 2 comebacks in the same year. But no, Joe Flacco's surprising run to relevancy, I think is absolutely worthy of the attention here.
Sure. If he takes the Browns to a potential Super Bowl, he could be bringing him up again. But next up is breakout team. Who'd you go with that, Peter?
Kind of going off of what you mentioned before, I'm going to the Canadian men's basketball team. I thought like this was the first time that the men's basketball team really had the attention and justified it, I guess. Like that this was the first time where they've had this attention and then they played well. We've had the attention before, and then you lose in a tournament that no one had heard of before, and oh, I guess we're not going to the Olympics now. Like they've had moments like that, but this was finally a time where the eyes of Canada were on them, and you had a superstar deliver, you had the team deliver. It was so much fun to watch and follow, and it felt like finally the real turning point for Canadian men's basketball to get to this point. So to have them kind of take over the summer, I thought they were the team that broke through this year.
We're simpatico. I went with the same team. I have an honorable mention I'll mention in a second, but just to excite the country, we kind of saw this. We definitely saw it with the Canada soccer team, and now you saw it with basketball. And it shows to me that Canada is willing to get behind these other teams, not just hockey, if they're going to be winning teams. And I think that's is someone that's around Canada basketball that screamed to them that, hey, we have an opportunity to, get more kids to play this sport and know that the fanfare is going to be there. Now going into Paris next year, that'll be huge, and there'll be different additions there, like Andrew Wiggins, maybe Shaedon Sharpe, maybe Ben Mathurin, Jamal Murray obviously didn't even play. So there's a lot of additions that are going to come. But, I'll tell you this, as a Laker fan, it made me root for Dillon Brooks all over again and become a big Dillon Brooks fan and realize country is more important than NBA team. And, those seconds, especially the game that came down to this, the buzzer, and they had to fight back and win. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that game in a bit. And unfortunately, they come up short, but then beating the Americans was a very exciting moment that had the Americans have to do the Redeem Team Point 50th or whatever they're on now for doing it and saying, oh, we didn't have our guys. But it set a new limit to what Canada basketball has been doing for a while. And, the showcase of what we can do against the world and what Paris can be.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it's been one of the exciting things of Canadian sport over the last little while of seeing like not just hockey, right? Like we're seeing women's soccer and then men's soccer and now the men's basketball and Brooke Henderson in golf, and I'm sure there's 1,000 other things that I'm forgetting. But seeing us be more than just a hockey nation, as someone who, like, obviously I've made quite a bit of my living covering hockey, but a lot of my passion is elsewhere. That's been really, really great to see. And yeah, hopefully this was just step one in a bigger process, and it kind of feels like it is.
It definitely is. Honorable mention for me, I had OKC Thunder was a team on there. The Orlando Magic was a team that I had in there. Vancouver Canucks, although I thought that was too early to kind of go with that with Vancouver, so I kind of put that on a temporary basis right now. And the Baltimore Orioles.
Yes, yeah, they are next level in terms of breakout. Like their whole team is basically on a rookie contract. So those are all very good honorable mentions for sure.
Next up is the most exciting team to watch. And man, there's a lot of this. I feel like this is the newer award I came up with this year. I feel like for a while, this would have just been Golden State. To announce this team as the most exciting is very painful for me as a Raider fan, because it's one of the three teams I hate. It's the San Francisco 49ers. Every single game they play, it's unbelievable. It's just CMC or Debo or Ayuk, and if not Kittle. And then you get to watch this team on defense with Bosa, and now they have Chase Young and Fred Warner and everybody that they're just an absolute stacked on both sides. And, we're getting to a point here where we're getting near the playoffs and everything like that. And they're just must watch every single time you watch them. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. I think in terms of talent on that team compared to everyone else in whatever league they play, they might be like the best team in sports right now. Like it's just, it does feel like an all-star game every time they go out there. That is definitely a great pick. I went same sport, different team. I went the Miami Dolphins. Like Tyreek Hill, and I'm never going to be a fan of his for off of the field stuff, but this team plays like it's Madden, where it's just deep pass, cross runner goes for a touchdown. Oh, here comes our third string running back who ran a 4.3 40 and he's off for a touchdown. Like it's absolutely insanity what they are doing each and every game. And in a league where every week you go look at betting totals and it's in the 30s and the 40s, and then Miami's games in the 50s, like they are standing out in a league that feels very much watered down. So yeah, if we got a San Francisco Miami Super Bowl, I would be more than okay with that.
And you talk about it this week, where it's a Dolphins team that faced a Cowboys team without a lot of weapons. No
Mhm.
Tyreek, at one point, no Waddle, right? And Hands up and down. Mostert has what, like 20 touchdowns or something?
Yeah, it's 19, I think. Yeah, setting a
That's
Dolphins
insane.
record for touchdowns.
And
Like,
we're barely even talking about that.
yeah, yeah, it's unbelievable what this team can do offensively, and I think honestly, I think defensively they're figuring it out. They
Yeah.
brought in Vic Fangio as their D coordinator this year, and he runs a quite an intricate system, and it takes a little bit of time. And I think that time is now out in Miami.
And as of today, they had a visit with Ndonkamwan Sue. I'll never say his name correctly, but with Sue as well, who,
Yeah.
hey, maybe his days are behind him, but still a nice force to have and a Super Bowl champion.
Oh, totally. Yeah, nice, a nice guy who can take up some space in the middle for sure.
These ones we'd always kind of run through pretty quickly here. I think these are always seem to be the chalkiest for me.
Yeah.
Best basketball, I think we're on the same page.
Maybe. Let's see.
Okay, I'm going with Nikola Jokic.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yes, yeah, Nikola Jokic. Sorry, I wasn't sure if it was best basketball team or player.
It's player,
But
yeah.
Player, it's Nikola Jokic. Second place is Nikola Jokic, and third place is Nikola Jokic. Like it is ridiculous what this guy can do with the basketball in his hands offensively. He is so much fun to watch. I still like we've been seeing them in prime time for a couple of years now. I still don't know how you're supposed to stop him or them. And like it's absurd. The Raptors will try to throw OG Anunoby on him.
Yeah,
Teams will try to throw big guys on him. Teams will try to throw four guys on him, and he knows how to handle every situation. And then he doesn't seem to really care either, and in like the best way, not in a like this guy like hates the sport or anything like that. But he's just like, yeah, I'm not going to get too worked up about things either way. It's really cool to see.
It's so interesting calling basketball this year. I feel the European import that we're having now at the collegiate side is really interesting. But now the influence of Joker is coming over. You'll see these big guys run stuff at the top. And whereas maybe 2 years ago on the collegiate side here in Canada, those big guys would still be traditional going down in the post. Now you're seeing them go up with the pick and roll, keep the ball, go for a three, or dish out like Joker. It is incredible the transformation of the game, how it's trickled down, and how cyclical basketball is, right? I mean, it was not even 4 years ago. We're like, we got to get shooters. You need to get shooters. You need to get shooters.
Yeah.
And now here we are back to the 90s, and it's the battle of the bigs. If you don't have a big, you're going to go down. You need an Embiid. You need a Joker. You need an Anthony Davis. Where are you going to go with one of those guys? We're talking about a team like Orlando or even OKC who has Chet, but they need that other piece to guard one of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny how there's always these cycles. And I remember growing up, it was like the kind of I was gonna say stretch four, but not in the way it's the stretch four now.
Yeah.
Like you would have Garnett and Duncan just outside of the paint putting up jump shots. Just, ooh, like this is wild. So you needed to have one of those. And then it was like Dirk Nowitzki taking it a step further and shooting from three. And there's all of this space now all of a sudden. So it's been funny how all this has kind of turned back around. But now, like we talk about, well, you need a stretch four so you can kind of space the floor out a little bit. Getting all kinds of animals running in here now. And so to have all of that, and now it kind of cycles back with like you need to have some people who can space the floor, but it's your center at the top spacing the floor and stepping up for three. That it's ridiculous, and it's so much fun to watch this sport grow and evolve.
You reminded me just a few years ago, well, obviously more now, but I remember Marcus Camby. This is when it started. It was, the Camby for three. I'm like, what's going on? Marcus Camby? And that was like when it was starting, when the bigs like, I guess I remember when Brook Lopez started to try to go for threes. Like, what is Brook doing? But it was just such a foreign idea at that point. Now there's still, I wouldn't want to see Bismack Biyombo, for example, step back and hit a three, but it is much more normalized because of someone like Jokic.
Yeah, like when Valanciunas was on the Raptors, he would step out for like one a game because the entire rest of the team just collapsed on the paint. Like, yeah, go for it. And now like it feels like there's like it's a necessity almost to have that thing. It's just that the evolution of the sport, man, is really crazy.
Best NHL player. I went pretty chalk here again. I went with Connor McDavid. Just seeing what he's done this year, like, I'm not the leader in points. Okay, well, I got to change that. And the slow rise that we've seen here in the first half of the season of growing up, he is not winning, to a level. You could definitely absolutely pick multiple players on the Vegas Knights, for example, that won the Stanley Cup this year. But he's the best player. He's not on the best team necessarily, but he's far and away right now the best player, to me at least.
Yeah, he was my pick as well. Like he had like 150 points last season. John Tavares just celebrated getting his 1,000th point the other day. There is a very real chance Connor McDavid could get his 1,000th point this season. And like 6 years earlier. It is absurd what this guy is able to do. And I think a lot of his struggles at the beginning of this season were based off of him being banged up and him wanting to get into that Heritage Classic game when he maybe wasn't 100%. If that was just a regular Battle of Alberta, I don't think he plays, and he probably doesn't play for a couple of weeks. And now I think he's back to being healthy and just reminding everyone, like, hey, if you even dreamt about someone being better than me, you better wake up and apologize, because he is just that good.
And you've seen the Oilers have a surge more recently now, back in the winning ways with him more healthy. Best NFL, best baseball player. Let's go with best baseball player. I hate this man because he broke my heart and shattered into a million pieces, but it's Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah. It's Ohtani, because like the reason that the hearts were broken is because he is a transcendent player, and even missing a month of the season isn't enough to slow this guy down from getting the MVP. There's nothing more that needs to be said about this guy. He is incredibly talented. His contract is absolutely wild. The parameters and all of that, with the deferred money and everything like that. There's a reason why the hoopla around this was so wild. He is one of one in the sports world right now.
And this one is the one that be the most interesting, where we can somewhat probably maybe disagree, which is best NFL player. Where'd you go for that?
I went Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that's what I did too then.
Yeah, like I know Patrick Mahomes is very good and all of that, but it's like, and last year's run to the Super Bowl was great. The way that Super Bowl ended was a bit of a downer with the penalty and all of that. But like this year, it's just been a bit off, and CMC has basically scored a touchdown in every game he's played in 2023. And while you have a lot of weapons on that team, he is the straw that stirs the drink. I think he should be the MVP this season. That's not just because I have a financial commitment to that. I think he is legitimately the most valuable player this year. It's just there's nothing he can't do on a football field.
Yeah, we need to get past this. I don't know when it happened. I think Sean Alexander, the last non-quarterback that won MVP, I believe.
That sounds right.
We just need to get past this idea that it's best quarterback all of a sudden, because I would make an argument Myles Garrett should be in this conversation as well, to a different level. But we're just going like, oh, it's quarterback. Like if I really did it, I would say CMC and then Myles Garrett are 1 and 2 for me personally, just the way that they affect winning.
Yeah, I would put Tyreek Hill in there as well.
Tyreek Hill, yeah.
Again, I'm not a huge fan of the human being, but we've seen what that team looks like when he goes down with an injury. It's lose to the Tennessee Titans bad. So they need that guy. Myles Garrett certainly could be in that conversation as well.
Best international athlete. Where'd you go on that one, Peter?
This one was more of a lifetime achievement award for me than anything that was necessarily accomplished this year. But she retires with a lot of fanfare. They named a stadium after her. It's Christine Sinclair. An amazing career. Not necessarily the final chapter that we wanted with how the World Cup played out, but just like, talk about transcending the sport. She is, with all due respect to anyone else who played on those teams, she is single-handedly responsible for growing the sport of women's soccer in this country. And I think there aren't enough flowers in the world to throw at her to celebrate everything that she has done. So maybe she wasn't the absolute best in 2023, but I think this being her last year, that there some recognition was deserved.
I kind of did the same thing you did in a way. And I went with Lionel Messi because what he did for Miami this year, it revolutionized MLS soccer.
Yeah.
And you knew it was going to happen. You knew that was going to happen. But what he did, he made MLS must watch every single week. And you look at the matrix and the ratings for MLS soccer. Was he the best overall athlete in soccer this year? Definitely not. He was not the best footballer. But I look at, really in a 12-month span, he's coming off last year. He has his World Cup and he's getting ready for the America Cup coming up here, the COCAPA coming up, probably his last one, I would guess.
I would imagine so, yeah.
But everything he did with Miami, St. Clair was my honorable mention as well. So I kind of wanted to be a little bit different, but just everything he did for Miami, and the way that he was scoring and winning games for them too was absolutely nutty.
And you'd see celebrities at Miami games. I saw a couple of Messi Miami jerseys when I was in Montreal on vacation. Those were, I feel fairly confident outside of like when I lived in Toronto. Those were the first two, or the first times I've seen an MLS jersey in the wild ever. And I don't think it'll be the last because of the impact that he's had.
Yeah, it was absolutely. When I was in, I happened to go to Orlando. I think it was about a week or 2 weeks after or before he had played. I can't remember, but Disney was bombarded with Miami Messi jerseys.
Oh,
it
I
was
bet.
nuts.
Yeah.
It was nuts. That and apparently Ben Simmons jerseys, because I saw 5 Ben Simmons jerseys somehow. Don't ask me why.
Really?
And my brother-in-law, like, what is going on? Is Ben Simmons' family here? Maybe.
Yeah. Have I just seen Ben Simmons a lot? This is so strange.
Next up is a little bit of a peek to a pod that we have coming in a little bit here, but this is the best combat sport athlete. So this is a mix of MMA, boxing, and wrestling, and 2 of those had really good years. Boxing, you know, it is what it is. It has some really good fights next year. Actually, there's some really good boxing matches next year. But what a great year for mixed martial arts and it's a pro wrestling. My goodness, but
yeah.
I'll let you. I had some MMA guys that are honorable mention on here, but I'll let you kind of go for who you're going to go with overall in this, Peter.
Yeah, there are a lot to choose from. Honorable mention in the boxing world to Terrence Crawford. He gets a win in probably the biggest fight of the year, knocking out Errol Spence Jr. in just an absolute domination. But to me, I think you have to go Islam Makhachev. He only fought twice this year, but both times it was a fight between the number 1 and the number 2 pound for pound fighter in the sport, and he ended up winning both of those. And so when you can win the fight between the top 2 fighters in the sport twice, it gets you some points. So to me, Islam Makhachev gets the win for what he has done now as the UFC's lightweight champion.
So I had Makhachev and I had Strickland on honorable mention. I went to the world of professional wrestling on this one, and I went with one bruv. I went with Will Ospreay, who supersedes, you know, the idea of what it is to be an athlete. This is the definition of an athlete right now. And well, professional wrestling, you know, anyone's top 10 list this year is going to be unbelievable. I find it hard to find anyone number 1 that's not named Will Ospreay this year. From another great G1 performance to the Kenny Omega matches to I could list stuff that just go on and on. Even the Jericho match was was fantastic. To be probably next to CM Punk, the biggest signing in the history of AEW. I could make an argument towards that. Shane Strickland also was one I thought of for MMA because he had a great year as well. Like he kind of like what you're talking about with Islam. He only had 2 fights, but he made him worth it.
Yes. Yeah. Made him count. That's for sure. But yeah, Will Ospreay, like, he rolls out of bed and has a 4-star match. And like there's different parts of his game that he has really started to figure out over the last little bit. And so yeah, it's like he has turned into the best wrestler in the world. And now to get the stage on AEW on a consistent basis, I think is going to be great. They're having a much bigger footprint as they whip the door open, like my dog just did here, into the UK market. I think he's going to be leading that charge 100%.
Next up, we go to college athlete, and this is where I gave Caitlin her due, and everything just kind of echo everything that you said. Just a phenomenal talent. Winning, obviously, she wanted to win, but winning wasn't what she needed. Well, it wasn't what we needed as an audience as much. She, you know, sent Angel Reese and LSU team to a different stratosphere, and it is setting up for this is going to be one of the most fun March Madnesses we've ever had. With the women's side, you know, I would really think people will be filling out women's brackets this year in a way that you've never seen before, which is awesome. And obviously people always fill the men's out. But, you know, getting to talk to people in charge of Alberta and Canada basketball, they're just hearing like, man, like I've heard more hype for this women's tournament than I've heard for the men's one. And hopefully we can do that up here in the Canada West, start getting that going because we have a lot of talented people, especially here in Calgary. But what Caitlin Clark has been able to do, and it's funny, it's kind of in that side, Peter, of Paige walked so Caitlin could run, and when she ran, and even before that, Sabrina like crawled. Sabrina crawled, Paige walked, and then Caitlin ran to get us to where we are now.
Yeah, this is going to be a group that's all kind of interlinked as they go into the WNBA, and I think if they had the same draft rules or lack thereof as the NBA did, Caitlin would already be in the WNBA. And I think the limitations they have, while we're never ones to celebrate limited earning potential for people, this has made this tournament must watch. And I think between Caitlin Reese and Paige, you can name 3 players in this before you could name one player in the in March Madness on the men's side. And even then, that player is Bronny, who has only just now started playing. So it's been really, really cool to see. Yeah, she was my pick as well. 27.8 points per game last year. 30.2 this year. And that's when I was looking at my notes. It probably improved since then. But yeah, she is. It's so much fun watching her play.
Next up is a Canadian one. I wanted to make sure we had a Canadian amateur one, and we also have local as well. So I could have doubled up on this one. So maybe I'll get to that one in the next one. I got a chance to see a lot of really good players at this level in the basketball world, and look, there's one player in particular that's really good in Diego Maffa, who also played in the CEBL this year, who is fantastic. I'm going to go a little sentimental on this one. And I'm going to go with Charlie Connor from the State Trojans, who ended a unbelievable 5-year run at State. This guy is the greatest State Trojan of all time. You're talking about a guy that played 5 years collegiately and has 5 conference championships, and then walks into the sunset with his coach with a national championship. You can't write that in storybooks. It is one of the best endings that we've ever had. Everything that Chuck has been able to do to grind out, hit big shots in that game against Dawson, and then go out on top. Just one of the best collegiate athletes that I've had the profession and the ability to be able to call. So I give him the Canadian Amateur Athlete of the Year.
I kind of struggled this one, and even right now I realize I left that spot blank. But just thinking about it here, he didn't do a lot in front of our eyes. It was but one inning pitched, but what an inning it was. Matt Wilkinson.
Thank you. Someone had to do it.
Yeah, he gets drafted to the Cleveland Guardians. I believe it was a 10th round pick. He just absolutely balled out in every league that he pitched in this season. I think he's going to be. It was a blast to watch him pitch, and it's cool to see the success story that he's had so far.
Yeah, and everyone now, even the guard. It's funny, stumbling onto Guardians Farm TikTok, which is a weird sentence to say.
Yeah,
it's like, we got this guy in like the 160th pick. Like, look at this guy, and it's so interesting watching Guardians fans like starting to hype up Mike the way that we now got to see him the last few years in Okotoks. Be part of the first championship that they won, and now are back to back. So, and that's interesting because I went to local next, and I did go with an Okotoks dog, and I went with a guy that you and I got to see hit a big home run in Game 1 of the championship, and that's Brandon Luther, who has been absolutely awesome here for the Okotoks Dogs. You know, there is a lot of really good, solid athletes. From the Dogs, from the Surge this year, from the Calvary, that don't get the recognition that they deserve, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to highlight this award. Brandon Luther, who you and I have had the luxury of getting to call him, has just been, man, just and it was so funny because from you to me to Gino all years, like, Brandon's been great, but where's that home run power? And then in the playoffs, it just like a switch went off. It's like, all right, I found it.
Yeah, it really did click for him, and it never clicked off after that. It was just every at bat, the ball was absolutely jumping off of his bat, and that was really fun to see. I had him written down, so I will go with my other pick, Ali Musi for Cavalry FC. Nice. He won the Players Player Award this year, and it just felt like I had season tickets this year for Cavalry, so got to watch a ton of games, and it just felt like every time a big play was happening, he was in the right spot at the right time and creating opportunities out there. And a big part of Cavalry winning the regular season title this year and coming oh so close to winning a championship this season in the CPL. So I thought Moosey deserved a bit of credit here as well.
That's awesome. And again, when we come here to the summer, we were spoiled this year as Calgarians.
Yes.
Having the Cavalry, having the Dogs, those two have already electrified, and then obviously having the Surge come here for the first year, and then having obviously other things all over the city. It was one of the most fun for having sports that I think this city has been able to have, of really having a downer of a Flame season, which you're forced to front row for a lot of it, but then to be like, hey, like, yeah, the Flames are the Flames, but look at all this other stuff we have here.
Yeah, and for a long time it was, hey, check out the Roughnecks. And now everyone kind of knows the Roughnecks are really awesome. And it's kind of branched out a little bit. And to a CFL conversation, that could be like its own show. You would wish the Stampeders would be able to kind of harness that energy as well. They just haven't. Even when they were playing well, they didn't get the city feeling that way. But no, you're right. Like with Surge, with Cavalry, with the Dogs, it was a truly fun summer out here in Calgary.
Next up, we have the best coach. I'll let you take that one, Peter.
Yeah, I kind of bounced around on this one a little bit. I did end up going Andy Reid. I think he was, like, you look at Kansas City, they don't have a lot there. Aside, like, they have the best, one of the most talented humans to ever play football in Patrick Mahomes, and maybe the best tight end ever in Travis Kelce. But after that, they don't have a lot there. No. And you see, like, the play calls that they had in the Super Bowl that led to 2 wide open walk-in touchdowns just with like a little bit of movement in the backfield, and to be able to maximize things to get this team to another championship. They're going to have to earn it this year if they're going to finish the job out in Kansas City. But he remains at the top of his game right now. He's going to have to be, like I said, but he was in the lead up to the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, you look at everything he had to work with. They don't really, we talk about the receiving issues week after week on our respective shows right now, but they were still there last year. Juju was their best receiver. Yeah. Obviously it was a better Travis Kelce, but the run game, was starting to find its way there with Pacheco, but it still, was trying to figure itself out. And then you had an injured Patrick Mahomes. So that was a lot of great coaching for Andy Reid to find another Super Bowl for himself.
Yeah. It was a really, really great job of being able to do that. And then, like you said, like there's people keep going out and it doesn't look as pretty, but here they are still on the verge of winning the division again for the 8th year in a row. It's remarkable what he has done in the second act after Philadelphia.
Great pick. I went to the women's game again, and I went with Kim Mulkey from LSU. We talk about Angel Reese, and we talk about all the great athletes in that team. Kim came in and turned this program around to just a great level. You're in the SEC, which for so long was taken over by Tennessee and those great Tennessee teams, and now has gotten the SEC to a different level with LSU being the top dog there now, and just a great run. She had a nice run at Baylor, and before that she was at Louisiana Tech for a while. So it's an absolute great run that she was able to do and pull off, and taking down Caitlin Clark and that Iowa team. Just a tremendous coaching job from the top to front, and a hell of a recruiter too. The fact that she was able to bring in Haley this year as well to what's going to make LSU. And we've talked about the big three, but Haley is definitely in that conversation as well. So I go with Kim Mulkey for my coach of the year.
Yeah. Recruiting anyone to a non-Tennessee SEC school had to be really, really difficult. And to be able to now start to, because I don't want to say it's easy to, just win one championship. I don't want to say that, but it's another thing to build a consistent program. And it feels like that's what they have built now at LSU. And it doesn't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon.
And everything that started off the season with Angel, whether it was academics and in-parent fighting and everything like that, I really admired how she handled that. And it's a non-story already. It could have been a way bigger story, but a good coach makes that a non-issue.
Yeah. Handled that one masterclass. Yeah.
Best GM, Peter.
I went Chris Young of the Texas Rangers. He put together a team that won the World Series, so that helps. But it was the way that this team was built, and like a lot of it is just they spent money. But it was like this team. They were kind of overachieving at the beginning. They have a ton of prospects. Like they are probably a year or two early, which is a nice thing to say about a team that just won a championship. But they recognize like, hey, we got something here. Like Seager's playing at an MVP level. Simeon is a model of consistency always, and at least Garcia just hits the hell out of a baseball every time he's swinging. But the pitching staff was maybe a little bit lacking, so goes out, acquires Jordan Montgomery. He makes a trade for Scherzer. It doesn't work, so he just adds more pitching. It was a really great job in being aggressive and consistently looking to improve your team and putting yourself in a position to win a championship. I thought he did the best job of any GM doing that this year.
He was honorable mention for me. I went with Kelly McCrimmon from the Vegas Golden Knights. And you start this year off, we don't have a goalie.
Yeah.
And so, getting to do that, being aggressive and getting the ankle trade done and all the other small moves, being an expansion team and getting to where they are as fast as they are, just a tremendous run for Vegas. And again, I remember those conversations at the beginning of the year. Like, they don't have a goalie. This is not going to happen for Vegas. They missed the playoffs the year beforehand. Is the honeymoon over there for Vegas? Like, are they just going to know that this is not what's supposed to happen? You're supposed to have your struggles. No, it was a 1-year struggle. Then they were back to being a Stanley Cup champion. And I think it's one of the reasons was the way that he guided the way for them.
Yeah, that's an excellent call. And they have been aggressive to a point of being criticized for how aggressive they were. And I think that a lot of that, like, rightful criticism, right? Like they were kind of ruthless in that, but they have now found the mix that works out in Vegas. And you see it this year. It feels like head and shoulders above a lot of the competition in the Pacific and in the Western Conference in general. And it is a tremendous job in team building. Like, books are going to be written about how the Vegas Golden Knights have built this championship team so quickly.
Absolutely. Best individual performance. Back to the women's NCAA again. Surprise, surprise. I'm going back to LSU. I'm going to Angel Reese because she comes in. Everyone is picking Iowa. It's Caitlin Clark's world, and we're just living in it. She was going to sit back and take it. Does the little John Cena, Todieo, whatever you want to call it now, and had a performance for a lifetime. And as you talked about too, like the WNBA, it's not going to pay. Doesn't unfortunately pay as great as it should, but those NIL deals, they pay great. And she got herself an NIL deal off of that performance and made a name off of herself. I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot of good individual performances because there was some good individual performances, but you don't see very much that someone has such a good performance that they get themselves paid and recognized to a level that they weren't before. And that's why I went with Angel Reese.
That's a really, really good one. To me, there was only one way to go. And that was Max Verstappen this year in Formula One. He himself scored enough points that he could win the constructors title. So like he beat every team this year in Formula One. He was so dominant that even Checo, who finished second in the driver's title, was so far behind that I was like, do we need to replace him? Like, because the other guy has the same car and he's breaking records. And this guy isn't. Like, what's wrong with him? This guy who's finishing second place every week. It was absolute dominance. It kind of sucked a lot of the drama out of the Formula One season. But he was like, this was one of the most dominant performances we have seen from anyone in any sport since like Tiger Woods. So that was where my brain went right away.
First off, shouts to Kelsey, who does our F101 podcast, an excellent podcast. Like you, he's a solo podcaster, which that is bravery. That is not as easy as it looks, people. But I am not a big F1 guy, but much like a lot of people, like I have to watch Vegas. Like the build up to everything, I had to watch it. And as soon as I watched, like, okay, so what's going on? Like, I need to get in. And it's like, and I remember just thinking, like, Max is ahead, doesn't need to, but hey, it's pretty and the lights are nice.
Yeah, exactly. And there was so much talk going in that one, right? Like they're starting it at 1 a.m. It's going to be colder there than any race in history that they've started. Are the tires going to get traction? Why is there a manhole cover during practice that exploded a car? Like there was so much negative around this, and then the race was fun. Like for everyone but Lando Norris, who spins off of the track. Like it was it's weird how this season went where, yeah, and Max only won by 8 seconds. So that it made it competitive because normally he wins by 40. It was a great, like, at the end of the weekend, it was a great maiden voyage into Las Vegas this go around. Obviously they had it back in the 80s, but hopefully a few teams catch up next year and make it a little bit more competitive so that one guy doesn't, pardon the pun, lap the field. But yeah, like that, it's obviously a sport that is growing. I think I think they learned a lesson from Vegas because, like, we were like, it's right around my birthday. I think it lands on my birthday, in 2024. And my wife is all in on F1 after the Drive to Survive series. And so we were like, oh man, like Vegas is my favorite town. It's my birthday, it's Formula One, let's go. And it would have been about 10 grand for each of us, like, to go. So we got a hotel here and watched it as if we were in Vegas, for $200. But I think they're going to have to learn I think they're going to learn that was an unrealistic price point. By the time the race was coming around, tickets that were $5,000 were 50. So I think that they will learn something from that. And hopefully we get a bit more competitive season. But that's not Max Verstappen's concern. He's just going out there and doing what he does.
Yeah, as someone that hadn't watched Drive to Survive but had heard all the positive buzz around it, the Vegas one was enough for me to be like, okay, next year I think I need to kind of know what's going on here because this was just exciting to just to, like, this guy is just an absolute dominant. Like, this is unheard of. And just the way the broadcasters have their English accents and everything like that, and they're kind of, chirping and joking the way that we would in a booth, but they're not sarcastic away. They're had their British sarcasm that kind of goes over some people's heads with just how far ahead he was with everything.
Yes. Yeah, they definitely had their jokes with that. And it is, as someone who grew up on English commentary, it's a lot of fun to see all of that. And I would recommend, like, I know you are in on a lot of sports, and so I don't think you need, like, hey, just fully engross yourself in an entire new sport. But Drive to Survive holds up, even though, like, it starts 5 or 6 years ago. You can go back and watch from the beginning. And it still holds up as just a very good reality TV show and a very good entry point to kind of, because, like, we're in the off season right now, it's what my wife and I did, like, just blast through it and get ready for the season. It's still something that holds up right now.
Best postseason performance. I guess, like, in maybe next year things are kind of the same thing, but there was a postseason performance too that I thought was just Joker. Just
Yeah.
Everything he just did was, he faced that Laker team. Maybe I'm a little bit biased as being a Laker fan, but there's just shots that I would just watch and like, huh? No, what? And it was a competitive sweep, I like to say, and I'm sure and a lot of Laker fans. But even then, when he faced the Heat, and talking to Jermaine, who is the broadcaster for the Surge and broadcaster for the Trojans, a friend of the pod, he was just the things this guy was doing in the championship was unlike something he's ever seen before. So
yeah,
I'm going to give it to Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, it's good when you beat a team in 4 games and 5 games, and after both series, like, yeah, but it was a competitive 4 or 5 games. Like, that's the bar, is that, like, you only got your ass kicked, kind of. Yeah, he was absolutely one of them. Just to name another name, Corey Seager with the Texas Rangers was unbelievable, and with one of the defining moments of the postseason with that home run, I think it was in Game 1, where he just launches one into orbit and gets the Rangers back into the ball game and helps lead them to a World Series, kind of establishing himself as, of mortal humans, the best baseball player in the world, in the non-Shohei Ohtani division.
Best offensive player this year, Peter.
It's funny, we're talking about, like, a two-way player, but I'm going with Shohei. What he does offensively, it's like he's hitting baseballs 495 feet. It sounds different. It looks different. It is different. And it's only half of what he does, but he's the best at it.
Best defensive player.
You've already brought him up, Myles Garrett.
Yes, mine too.
Just an absolute beast and a game wrecker. I will say it's an honorable mention this year because we've only seen him professionally for a few games. But I think we can just pencil in Victor Wembanyama next year.
You think so?
Yeah, it's the, like, OG trying to take it at him in the post was hilarious. The shot with LeBron, absolutely knowing what he's doing, posing there a little bit before hitting a shot over Victor. There's not many people who are going to be able to do that. So yeah, honorable mention to Victor Wembanyama, who still feels like just a video game character come to life.
Biggest upset in sports. 2023?
There was actually a few when I went over this one. And it's one of the ones where I have like a couple of things scratched out. I did eventually go Miami Heat over the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
Just like Milwaukee, the 1 seed, Giannis, the best player in the world. Miami were basically dead in the water in the play-in. Like I remember when they lost that first play-in game, I did a podcast saying like, look, Heat culture was fun. You guys had your moment. It's over. This thing needs to get blown up. It's old. It's not good. Oh wait, what's that? Just beat the favorites to win the NBA title. Cool. All right, I'll shut up then. It was, and it was so dominant, and they just so demoralized that Milwaukee team. Now there were like Giannis wasn't 100% for sure. Coach Bud had a lot going on outside of the basketball court as well, but still, what they were able to do there, I thought made it the biggest upset of the year.
That's definitely one. I thought about this one, but I didn't think it was enough. But was Alabama beating Georgia? Which was just like the ricochet effect of how it did upset people.
Yeah, like that one. The chaos it caused is enough to I would say to warrant that one. I like that a lot. Yeah.
So I debated that one, but I ultimately went yours is definitely one I considered, but I went with Jacksonville coming back and upsetting the Chargers to go to the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a really good one. It so defines what the LA Chargers are, and I know you went on a bit of a thing on one of your shows.
I found a Charger fan. I found one.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know
one.
two. Like I know two, and one of them is rather vocal. So I've never suffered from a lack of Charger fandom in my life, but I can certainly see where you're coming from. But yeah, no, that was such a defining moment for the Chargers in an awful way. So I like that one. Yeah.
There was, I mean, obviously March Madness had a few. Some would say that Iowa losing to LSU was technically an upset to some of them. I'm sure there's fans that were upset about their teams, but we'll talk about that in a bit here. Best trade, but this is also best transaction as well. So if you think there's a signing that you kind of supersede on that, I don't think this year for the worst and the best trade, unlike past years, I'm like, there wasn't there was one transaction particularly that was a big one. And maybe that's the way you're going to go. But I don't think we had like that jaw-dropping trade this year. Is like, holy crap, that trade happened, unless I'm forgetting something.
Yeah, I couldn't recall that one either. Like you go over all the all the trade deadline seasons, and like there were trades, but there wasn't like this has shaken this sport to its core. I guess like maybe Dame to the Bucks, because that kind of spirals off a few things. But I went back to the world of baseball. I went, and it pains me as a Blue Jays fan, but I went the Diamondbacks getting Gurriel and Moreno.
That's it. That supersedes what I have. 100%.
Which like it turned them into a championship level team immediately. And like I am not as down on I'm not as down on Varsho as other people are, but I do think that like that turned that team from, oh yeah, they're all right, to, oh, this is a team that is legitimately going to make noise in the NL West and eventually just in the whole National League.
That supersedes what I'm due, so I'm going to make that pick. That's when you know you have a good pick. That was the pick, because the Diamondbacks, and you could put them in upset as well, beating the Phillies.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
Just a great run for them, and they just started to just kind of chug along and started to figure out pieces. And you know, people on the Blue Jays, I remember when that trade happened. It did happen like late December last year, and I just remember looking at it and be like, "What the fuck?" And I think I even text you. I'm like, and you're like, "Yeah, I don't get it," but you know, we have to kind of see how it all plays out. And I'm not on low on Dalton as either. I think there is positive stuff there. Some of the raw numbers, not to be a baseball geek, some of the raw numbers are still really good. But obviously, Gurriel, for example, was such a fan favorite for the Jays, and they just re-signed him, the D-backs, which makes that trade even better.
And like the frustrating thing with that, not to go on a Blue Jays tangent here, but the frustrating thing with that is that those guys ended up doing like exactly what the Blue Jays needed in the playoffs, like big hits at big times, where the Blue Jays got exactly none of those. And so that's why it stung all the more, is that while Varsho filled a defensive need, and I think he's going to be fine. Gurriel and Moreno had major impacts this year on actual winning baseball.
They did. I looked at some of the trade deadline trades. One trade I thought was beneficial was the Lakers just trading Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, beneficial to both.
Beneficial to both. It was
worked out for him.
Win-win for both, in the sense of they got Vando and they got D'Lo, and now we'll see where that D'Lo piece leads to next year. I'm sure we'll be talking maybe about D'Lo on the worst or the best next year for whatever trade he is a part of, because that's going to be a big part. I mean, the Aaron Rodgers trade happened, but it's TBD on what that is, because we never really got to see it. But there wasn't that overwhelming, like the Dame trade happened, but it's whatever, and the James Harden trade, which, man, I wanted that to be worst trade, but now I can't do it. I had it. No. I was ready to make that worst trade as soon as it happened, but now, unfortunately, this year I can't make it the worst trade anymore. But the D-backs one, Peter, that's the one, because of how it affected everyone going forward.
Yeah.
Best jersey.
I went with the Eagles bringing back the Kelly Green. That just, it looks correct, and I like the McNabb era jerseys and what they have now. I think their black jerseys are exquisite, but both of us being Raider fans, I think every team should have a black jersey. And then trademark the Vegas, Los Angeles, Oakland Raiders for it. But going with those retros, honorable mention to Seattle doing the same thing. Those were,
pick, by the way.
Okay. Those were superb jerseys this year.
Yeah, both of those are great. It kind of goes to the thing of if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. And it was surprising to me when they were like, "Oh yeah, teams will be able to use their retro helmets this year." I was just like, "Oh, I guess they really haven't been able to for a while," and it was nice the teams really embraced that again.
Yeah, it was. It absolutely. I've seen that a lot. The one that did piss me off, I'm not going to make it worst jersey, but I have a mini tangent, was what the Titans did this week was bullshit.
Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like I understand why you're doing it. Don't do it against Houston. That's extra shitty. And Carolina doing the Hartford Whalers jerseys. It always feels uncomfy when teams do that sort of thing. Hey, we're celebrating that we took your team from you. I guess there are some teams that just the even now, the Los Angeles Lakers technically wear the Minnesota Lakers stuff all the time, but a little different.
We did that. I went full of Bill Simmons there. But we did that. We wore the Minnesota ones in Minnesota one time, and I'm like, I don't like this. This is BS.
Yeah. It's just there's certain things you just you have to understand you're being shitty right now, right? You have to understand this is gross.
I'm not going to make those the worst, because the jerseys themselves are nice, but I was not happy with that. Best play, Peter.
Man, this is one of those ones where in years past, unless I'm forgetting something, there's not a whole lot that that stood out to me. The first play that comes to mind, and it's not the best play of the year, but just this week, T. Higgins with that touchdown on the sideline where he swings his arm back around and into the end zone. I've just never seen anything like that before. So I'm going to go at the World Juniors. I forget who all was involved, but it was overtime in the gold medal game, and the puck got stopped at the goal line. And then Canada comes back and scores. So that this is very unofficial, but that one is my play of the year, unless there's an obvious one that I'm missing that I apologize for.
No, you pretty much landed it. It was hard this year. There wasn't, like you said, there really wasn't that play to really go with. I'm going to be kind of, a little bit, again, it kind of goes back to Canada basketball to me. And it was SGA's shot against Spain to give Canada the lead after being down. There was other good plays. I'm back and forth on two. Panda Jack's interception last week was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like that. And Messi, a lot of them just feel like big moment type of things this year, rather than that was an outstanding play. Messi getting the goal against for Miami, and anything that Jokic had. And there's a million dunks that happened this year. And again, I'm sure I'm missing one of those top plays that you're going to go and watch the SportsCenter top play during Christmas. Like, why wasn't that one?
Exactly. We needed to do this after that list came out, so I could just steal from that. Honestly, like, it's not a top play. My favorite play, I don't even know what league that was from, but it's a basketball highlight's been going around. Guys driving into the paint. A dude who's like 8 times his size blocks the shot. The dude who went in for the layup fell out of bounds. Guy who blocked the shot caught it and just tossed it to the guy who was laying out of bounds. So it's his team's ball anyway, and it's just a giant screw you to the guy. It was the biggest, like, yeah, you're nothing that I've ever seen on a basketball court in my life. I loved it. Again, not the best play of the year, but my favorite play of the year.
There was the one preseason game with Wemby when he like blocked a shot, came down, got like a 3, blocked another shot, came down, like got a dunk or something. Yeah. I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah. And like Connor Bedard had one in, like, it was at the rookie camp, so it's whatever. Yeah. But he walked like the whole team and then put it top shelf. Just utter ridiculousness.
Best moment, Peter.
Best moment for me, we haven't talked about this a ton, and maybe it deserves a bit more recognition than we've given it, but like we've said, that there's been a lot this year. Shohei Ohtani striking out Mike Trout to win the World Baseball Classic.
Good. That is good.
Like, that's what I'll remember from 2023. And I remember watching that highlight when I thought the Blue Jays were going to get him, and then watching that highlight when I knew the Blue Jays weren't going to get him. And it's two different emotions. I cannot explain to you how reckless I was going to be with my spending if the Blue Jays got Shohei Ohtani. Like, the white jersey, the blue jersey, the powder blue jersey, his fighter's jersey, his Samurai Japan jersey, like, all of that was going to be purchased. And I don't make it. I am not in a financial position to be making those sort of decisions, but I was gonna. But like that, just that moment, those two guys, the two players on the same team, finally going face to face, head to head, in the biggest spot we've seen either of them in North America, was just so freaking cool.
That's one of those. That is the top moment. I'll go a different just to be different, but that is the top moment. I will admit. That was one of those social media moments too. That was just, this is the timeline. Deal with it. Yeah. Like, it was everybody crossover in every sport, every athlete, and for baseball that is quote unquote dead from people. It was like, no, not exactly, because this is the World Baseball Classic, and people kind of were looking ahead too. It's like, holy shit, we may get Trout and Ohtani, and it was a sense of no one even cared who won the game, at least here in Canada. Yeah. I'm sure around the world outside of Japan and America were like, I don't even care. I'm sure even some Americans are like, this would just be cool too. Like, I don't want Trout to strike out, but I want this matchup because holy crap, that is cool.
And then for it to happen with 2 outs in the 9th, like it would have lost a little bit if like Nolan Arenado comes up after and hits a home run. But because it closed out the tournament, it was so cool. And then everything the next day, it was like, hockey needs to get a best on best World Hockey Cup, and like basketball, we need to take this more seriously and get our athletes in it. How can we get them to care this much about these games? Like, every sport had their, okay, how do we do this? And it was cool. As someone who, like, baseball is in the top 2 for me, to have baseball have that moment again was really, really special for me. Again, and it's why I'll never be able to hate Shohei. Sorry, but I can't.
At least he's not in the AL.
Right. If he would have been a Yankee, that would have been different. Like, I'm going to have no problem hating Yamamoto when he signs with the Yankees. Yeah. Watch him sign with the Blue Jays before this comes out. But
I know you heard, Peter. We're getting someone every day. First it's Jealous, then it's Louis Roberts every single day. Stop my torment.
Man, I remember it was the NFL Sunday before it all went down, when that report came out that the Blue Jays were the favorite to get Soto. And I had a moment where I was like, man, could you imagine if they got both Soto and Ohtani? I was like, oh yeah, you could just go like Springer, Soto, Ohtani, Biggio, Vlad, and there you're set. You win the World Series. And
even then Davis I was like, too.
Yeah, I'll be fine. I'll accept one. And now it's like, oh hey, Cody Bellinger. But such is the life.
Again, I will recognize Peter does have the moment, but I'll be a little bit different. I'm going Canada beating Spain and clinching their first Olympic bid since 2000. Again, as someone that's worked in Canada basketball, this was just a personal and emotional one for me. I have not broke down very much watching a sporting event the way that I did for that, of playing basketball, coaching basketball, broadcasting basketball, of refereeing basketball, and being around this. And just for our community, I'm even getting emotional talking about it now again. how important that was because we had been so bloody close. And when
Yeah.
Jamal went down, there was a fear of like, oh no, it's this. We're gonna have to do the thing when we lose to Venezuela next summer and do that. And even in that game when we're losing to Spain, it's like, I guess we're gonna have to do this next summer. But hey, we got Jamal, and maybe we'll have Wiggins and Mathurin, and you're going through
Yeah.
your mind, and then they did it. They actually did it, and they had a chance to. They have a chance now to go to Paris and. We've already talked about it all, but man, what a moment that was for everyone that was around Canada basketball, has worked for Canada basketball, and for the country at large.
Yes. Yeah. Like I'm not as into it as you are, just from like a professional standpoint, but as someone who like played basketball all my life growing up, and then got into it, like was able to call it when I was in college, and missed doing that. But and then on the radio at 960, where I was finally able to bring it up in 19 when the Raptors are making their run. And we did the watch along thing where people just watched me stress eat while the Raptors were playing the Bucks.
Yeah.
That was like to finally get that like kind of national recognition of this sport that's awesome and that we're pretty good at was really great to see.
Absolutely. Next up, you get to be a little personal here, Peter, because we work in this sporting world.
Yeah.
What's your favorite sporting moments that you were a part of this year?
The time I hit a home run in slow pitch. No. For me, I went back. I wanted to make sure I had the date right. It was May 31st for the Dogs against Fort McMurray. It was a walk-off win. They were down 4-2 in the ninth inning.
Right, I remember that call. That was a good
they
call.
They come back and tie the game. And then they get it on the ball that gets thrown away to first base in the 11th inning for the walk-off win. Like selfishly for me, finally getting able to do playoff games. It's just the way things have worked out the last couple of years. I wasn't able to. I was kind of on the schedule too a couple of years ago, and then had what we call in the industry a mentee B. And then now this year to finally get to some playoff games was really, really cool. But for moments, it was a walk-off win for the Dogs early in May that kept them undefeated.
Yeah, that was good. I remember that call that day, watching that and cutting it and getting it up at me. I'm like, I need to get this call up for Peter immediately. It's like texting Home Team Live, I'm like, get this call.
Yeah.
Look, I got spoiled this year professionally. This is probably the best professional year I've ever had. I have a quagmire of a decision to really go here. I have 4 unbelievable moments I was a part of this year. One is close to my heart because it was my alma mater, with the Trojans winning the national championship. I got the privilege of watching the Dogs call their second WCBL championship. I got to call the U15 Alberta Basketball Championship. So again, I was absolutely blessed this year. But for me, the pinnacle of my career so far, as much as that state one does mean a lot, and I am very privileged, and Peter was nice enough to text me how happy he was with my call, and that did personally mean a lot to me and professionally, Peter, when you did that. It's the Canada West Women's Championship, Dinos and Pandas. That game was meant a lot, just because that's my sister's alma mater. She played for them. And so it was this weirdly weird dichotomy of being a Dino and wanting. I didn't really care who won that game. I just wanted to call a good game. But if the Dinos won, I definitely professionally would have been very, very happy about that. But Scott Edwards being on the other side and coaching my sister, he'd been at my sister's wedding, knowing how much he meant to her life. And just we get to see all these pandas all over the place, all these Dino fans, basketball really hitting its apex at the Jack that day. And it was an absolute privilege. And right after that, I jumped and watched, got in the Grove trial and drove to Ambrose, and then called St. beating St. Mary's to win the CCA championship that exact moment. Again, I was absolutely blessed this year, and I had a lot of moments, but getting to watch that and watch Scott Edwards win his first Canada West championship was an absolute privilege this year. And the Dogs winning another WCBL champion. Again, I was spoiled this year.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. Well deserved.
Next up, we get to go to the best game, Peter.
Yeah, there's a few, and like I want to go the Super Bowl. It's a 1-score game, and it was such a great game, but just that the penalty at the end kind of takes it from me. And so like maybe this game wasn't as good, but we just talked about its ending. I'm gonna go Japan against the United States in the World Baseball Classic. it was just, again, to have that sort of an ending, to have that kind of drama was just so much fun.
I'm again going to be kind of cliche here. Canada versus Spain. Canada's down. They fight themselves back. Just an absolute back. And for Super Bowls up there as well. The WCBL Game 3 was a wild one. The dogs were up. The dogs were down. That was crazy. We had some really good, like I said, some of those Laker and Denver games were incredibly close this year. Just really good. I even found Bucks and Pacers in the in-season tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Was a really good game. Probably the best game of the in-season tournament, to be honest. But yeah, I'm going to go with Canada beating, Canada beating Spain. Although Canada versus States was also really, really enjoyable as well.
Yes. Yeah. It's just nice to beat them. But yeah, like what that game meant. And like for me personally, I was back home at the time, so I was able to watch the game with my dad, which was really cool. Got to really, really enjoy that. That was really sweet. So yeah, I will absolutely co-sign on yours. That's a strong pick.
Biggest story, Peter. There's some yucky ones.
Yeah, I went a positive one with this one. It is, and maybe sports people won't necessarily like it, but there is no sports story on the planet this year that has been bigger than Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Like
that's the one.
Yeah, like it's transcended sports. It's the last frontier that the NFL hadn't really got into, and that's the Swifties, and that they were finally able to break through on that barrier. Like you have Taylor Swift, who's the most famous human being on the planet. You have Travis Kelce, who is just like likable, marketable, very good at what he does, all of those sorts of things. Like just kind of this perfect combination that has created this perfect storm around the sports world.
I was joking because again, as we mentioned, we're Raider fans. I'm like, my Raider Christmas is gonna be spent with Taylor Swift, because even watching the game this week against the Pats, it was like Travis Kelce shot, Taylor Swift shot, Travis Kelce shot, Taylor Swift shot. So there's no way she's not going to be at the Christmas game.
No,
and here I am going to be, and you are. I don't know if you're as delusional as I am. I'm like, well, there's still a chance. Like it happened in 2021. Like if we win out, we got this chance. And
they've averaged 31.5 points a game in the last two. So like anything can happen, right?
Exactly. So I'm going to be, hoping for some playoff potential for my up and down Raider team, which I can't wait to get to the worst of, because I'm sure they'll be on that side. Especially one personal individual in that. But this has just been nonstop, right? Whether you like it or you're not. And it's completely changed the rating system for the NFL. The NFL seeing bigger ratings than it's ever seen. It kind of even goes back to before she was dating Travis, of the halftime show and not being Taylor. And everyone was like, why is this not Taylor? Why is it Usher? All respect to Usher, who I'm sure will be great. But people's like, it seems like it's time for Taylor. And now kind of, taking Kelce to another one, and even the TikToks of the wives being like, oh, she made Travis Kelce. No one knew who he was, which is super entertaining for a little bit. It is the biggest sports story because it went into the sport, to the entertainment world. It went globally, right? Your mom or your friends or whoever that didn't know who Travis Kelce was, now he is a known person.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And like he's a great representation, because there's a lot of shitty dudes in sports, and it feels like he's not one of them. And so that's kind of awesome as well. Like what was it, Chasing Kelce or whatever it was, aside. And like the podcast, like those guys have hit the podcast at the exact right time. Like it's all been this perfect storm around that. And yeah, it's the biggest story in sports. It's probably the biggest story in like Taylor Swift is the biggest story in entertainment, and he is at least a part of it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the one to go with. When it came down to it, Peter, who is the best male athlete this year?
Man, this one was kind of difficult because there are a lot of great performances. I do have to go Nikola Jokic for just how well he played in the NBA's postseason. Like just no one was that much better than everyone else in their sport, the Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could go on and on about it, but that's mine as well. It's Jokic. Yeah. I mean, normally sometimes you have a great tennis performance or a great golfing performance, and there was, but not like the overwhelming that you see in the past. And as good as Ohtani was, Jokic ended up walking away with a championship at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think like could have gone Max Verstappen in this spot as well, but I just think
I think those are the two.
Yeah, I already gave him his flowers, and so to throw this one in, Jokic I think gets it.
Where'd you go for best female?
I am kind of mixing it up a little bit. Just if nothing else, I felt like this team deserved some representation this year on this. So I went Aja Wilson from the Vegas Aces.
That's mine too.
Yeah, I had it written down here. What was it? 42-7 combined this year between regular season and playoffs.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Jeff Van Gundy joked like, "Are they going to go undefeated this year?" And he wasn't that far off. And she was the best player on the team. So I think you have to go with that one.
You got to remember too that this is the Vegas Knights team. Yeah, they have Kelsey Plume and they have all the talented players that they have. They didn't have Candace Parker.
Yeah, wild. Well, just like they might have gone undefeated. Yeah, wow.
Your most anticipated event of 2024?
I'm going to go with the. I'm going to go in the fight world, and I'm going to say UFC 300. That's coming up this year. It feels like Dana White has been kind of reinvigorated a little bit the last couple of months. The UFC kind of runs itself now, and he doesn't have to put the full weight of the UFC machine behind things anymore. And so he's dabbled in the slap fighting thing, and he's obviously had his issues away from the UFC at the start of the year here in 2023, and it's made it a little bit difficult at times. But now you could see how excited he was when they acquired Michael Venom Page from Bellator and now PFL, and they're planning a show at the Sphere, UFC 300. He was like saying that the first fight on the prelims is going to feel like a main card pay-per-view fight. It feels like he kind of has his promotional swagger back, and so I think they're going to absolutely try to deliver here in 2024.
And that is going to be promoted to high hell because that's the week after WrestleMania. So that I think will be the first time you see TKO really cross promote in a way that we haven't seen TKO and WWE and UFC all pollinate together. That will be the big week. We will see a lot of UFC 300. You will see fighters in the front row. Dana might actually get a front row seat.
Oh yeah. Oh, that there will be promotion, and I wonder, like, there has been talk. I know the WWE ring is sacred, but there's been talk of advertising there. I wonder if there is a bit of a UFC 300 logo somewhere on that canvas there. I'm also just like the UFC in general. I feel like to kind of get Dana like back into the swing of things, and because they are with the WWE now, who do the big events still better than anyone. With all due respect to AEW going to Wembley this year, I wonder if the UFC. And with TKO now, I wonder if they start to branch to bigger arenas and try to fill them up that way. I wonder if that's something we start to see them do here. But that's now I'm off on tangents, so we can move on with yours.
I on that point, I think it's a good point because I do think Ari and Nick Khan have kind of brought up that point of, maybe you have a WWE show in the morning and then the UFC show at night and the double side you have there. I almost thought when we had that Australia shows coming up for Elimination Chamber, I thought that was maybe the opportunity to do the first one for that. But I think WrestleMania is when they're going to go full force and really have people at the Hall of Fame, people at Mania, and really go forward. And maybe we'll have Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know.
Well, and like you see, like the WWE reportedly signing Ken Shamrock to a Legends contract.
Yep.
I wonder if he gets WWE Hall of Fame. It's a UFC tie-in. It's like all of those things. Like there's a lot there. But like again, just to go on a tangent, like they had the best year they've ever had in Mexico. I think you could run something pretty big in Mexico this year. They have two champions from England right now. I think you could do something big in England. They are always big in Ireland. You could do something there. The Canadian stars are lacking right now, but you could at least do something in Canada. But I think there are big shows to be had across the world, and I think them being partnered with the WWE, who are still the undisputed kings at that, is only going to mean good things in that world anyway.
And on top of that, you're going to have the Conor stuff, right? Conor hasn't fought forever. Again, not a fan of the human being particularly, but like it or not, he has drawing power. Will they dare think that Ronda Rousey is still a draw and try to maybe go down that realm? I hope not either. And like for you, what do you think that main event of that show is?
Man, oh man. It's tricky because like none of the champions right now, aside from John Jones, none of them really feel like they're on that level. Like Izzy maybe could have been, but losing to Sean Strickland is really difficult. And so like the John Jones injury makes it challenging. He would be the obvious one to go with. I think Connor against Michael Chandler is probably the biggest name that you are going to have there in terms of what the main event is actually going to be. I genuinely I don't know what they could do right now that would feel worthy of that kind of stage at this moment.
I mean, in a different world, we get an aging machine and we just do Brock and Fedor finally.
yeah, that would be fun. I mean, hey, yeah, Brock against Daniel Cormier. Let's roll it out there.
Sure, I'm running it.
I remember I've seen videos now for whatever reason that was popping up on my TikTok how they were hyping things up. That might have been getting ready for UFC 200. But yeah, that was a wild time. Like I do think they're going to go all out with this, but I don't know. I don't know who they have right now that kind of feels like the champion who could represent that card in the way that you would expect.
Yeah, it feels the UFC. We talked about this on our combat show the other day. Feels like they have a lot of like really good stars, but they don't have that Ronda Connor type of star right now.
Yeah, and I think that's part of like I don't think Dana White has been as all in on this as maybe he has been in the past. Like I don't think he's asleep at the wheel. But like the UFC machine has not been behind guys like Makhachev or Volkanovski the way that they maybe should be, because those were two gigantic fights this year, and it was just like, okay, whatever. Like they have a lot of fighters right now who fight fans adore, but in terms of like that big mainstream draw, they haven't. They feels like they've missed a cycle with that, right? Like we cycled from the GSPs and the John Joneses into the Rondas and the Connors into kind of the Israel Adesanya's, Daniel Cormier's, and now we've swum back around, and it's, well, can Connor still go? Like we've missed. Yeah. We've missed a step somewhere along the way of building these guys up. And so I think that should have been a bigger priority this year, but I think it's going to be a big priority for them now going forward.
I think there was really three you could do with this, because there is like 3 game-changing events. This was one of them. Paris Olympics, which is one I really went with. And then the other one was the Euro Cup, which is what I went with. Because I'm an England fan and I like to be tortured. And the last time we were in the Euro Cup, I was tortured. Yeah. So hopefully this is the one. Who knows?
Maybe
it's been back to back. This is the personal side. Just rough cups for England, of the missed penalties and then the missed PK by Harry, which means ages ago. And I just want to watch one World Cup or Euro Cup England victory with my granddad before he's no longer with us. So yeah. I'm just hoping that, number one, we can get to Euro Cup and then we can at least enjoy that victory together, because I watch all the matches with him. So hopefully we can get to it. But the last Euro Cup we had, England or not, I thought was absolutely phenomenal. We had a really good World Cup a year or so ago, and Paris obviously too. I think we're shaping up for a really fun Paris Olympics. Yeah, Simone Biles, obviously, get to see everything with her, and seems like we have a new energy to the track side of things and the swimming side of things that we've had before. We still have the dominant names there, and then obviously for basketball this year, it's going to be unbelievable, especially with the American Joel Embiid. I wish there was a category for most annoying thing I could go with. I haven't been annoyed about an Olympic decision this much since Brett Hall on the American hockey team.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair.
So we've been positive. Let's get negative for a little bit here and get to the other side. What's the worst moment of the year for you?
To turn this like very dark very quickly, I think it was Adam Johnson passing away on the ice, taking a skate blade to the neck, and like it just absolutely horrendous, and like just so sad, and like some of the discourse around it has obviously been very frustrating, as a lot of discourses are. But yeah, that one, to not to like bring things to a screeching halt or anything like that, but that was just that's one that like there's nothing worse than that for me.
That was mine as well. I remember seeing it on social first, and be like, what? Right? Yeah. And you always have the fear of it, right? And then in your mind is like, how has this not happened more often?
Yeah.
Then you're also just like, luck, why did it have to happen? Yeah, just luck. And you're just like, but why did it have to happen? This is terrible. This is horrible. Yep. And it's also like, what are preventable things we can do for this? It's kind of hard. When you're in a sport where one part is literally a knife that's on the ice.
Right. Yeah. They're skating around on literal razor blades. So what can you do with that? It is very tricky for sure.
So yeah, that is the pick there. And it was an absolute devastating one. That
Yeah.
again, that's one of those things too that people that they don't even roll sport they were talking about.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was everywhere for a few days.
Worst coach. We may be simpatico in this one. To me, there's one coach that goes above and beyond that was just ruined a team's year. Ruined a team that was a playoff team, ruined the last 2 years of a team. And that's Josh McDaniels to me. Just an absolute joke of a head coach. Cost the Raiders a game against the Bears because he refused to put Aiden O'Connell in against them.
Mhm.
Remember Brian Hoyer when everybody knew that was the wrong choice. Cost them the game against the Steelers this year on a terrible call. Cost them the game against the Chargers when all they had to do was run it in. You look where the Raiders are in the standings right now, and there is 2 games that, there's always the analogy of like, well, if I was playing Madden, this is what I would do. But this is not just a Monday night quarterback situation. This is very obvious stuff. And as Raider fans, I know you can share my frustration. This settling for that field goal against Pittsburgh, and when they should have just ran the ball against the Chargers, those were 2 layup of wins that were just sitting on a silver plate for them, but just had consistently terrible coaching. And to see the overlapping change when Antonio Pierce comes into that locker room, it's day and night of a culture that just did not like this guy, did not want to play for this guy. And we saw it in Denver, and you should have known. You saw it, the Colts dodged a bullet, but still kind of had to deal with Frank Reich, so they still had to deal with a bad coach anyways. As a Raider fan, I've dealt, and you have dealt with a lot of bad coaches, and we don't have really enough time to give you all the coaches that we've dealt with bad coaches, but there's been a lot of them. Nerve Turner is up there. Callahan, who took over after Gruden, is probably one of the worst ones of calling the same plays that Gruden did and cost them a Super Bowl because of it.
Yeah.
But this guy, just an absolute dipshit.
Yeah, and it was never a hire I was on board with. It was incredibly frustrating, and just like you took it wasn't just the coaching, like it was the roster construction as well. You took a team that went to the playoffs and kind of just gutted it and brought it down to nothing. And it was like Derek Carr, I think this year it looks pretty obvious in New Orleans he's kind of cooked. But you get rid of Derek Carr specifically to free up the cap space to do other things, and then you just spend all of that money and more on Jimmy Garoppolo. That was a poor decision. And so it is, he is certainly up there. He was an honorable mention for me. Quite frankly, I think a coach who did less with more. Brandon Staley also up there for the Chargers. Speaking of ruining a playoff team, that Chargers roster I still think is really good. And they have consistently underperformed. But I'm going to go with a coach. And this one may be, I might lose out on this one on a technicality. I'm going to go with a coach who didn't coach this year. Mike Babcock, the coach for the coach for the Columbus Blue Jackets until he wasn't, but he ran a couple training camp things, so it counts. He gets hired. Apparently he wanted to look through every player's phone, and they were like, well, that's weird. And everyone just kind of agreed and fired him. And now he's probably never going to come back again. So good riddance to my worst coach of the year, Mike Babcock.
Yeah, that was weird. Again, it's one of those things I hear is he wanted to do what now? And I was even surprised when he came back. I think a lot of people were surprised to hear that Babcock was back at the helm there. And that was just bizarre. Yeah. That's a great pick. Mine may have been a little more personal. Maybe.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad pick either.
No, not at all.
Not a bad one. There is actually quite a few bad coaches, and it seems like a lot more of them are in the NFL.
Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of bad ones in the NFL right now. There's a lot of bad quarterbacks as well, but I think that there's been this rush to just get the next offensive mind. So it's just that guy, you come on, let's do this. You went with Brady, sure. They're looking for just one little thing, and it's okay. Well, we found it. Let's get that guy. And then you look at DeMeco Ryans, who doesn't fit that mold at all, but he might win Coach of the Year. The Texans might win the division. So I think teams being a bit short-sighted has led to some just dreadful hirings.
I mean, next year, right now, the sexy name is Ben Johnson, right? Everybody wants Ben Johnson.
Yes.
And it's I hope he works. I hope that I'm hey, Ben Johnson worked. I mean, as a Raider fan, I personally would like to keep AP right now because I think it's with him and Champ at the helm, everything kind of seems simpatico and balance in the
Yeah.
right organization is all I want. And I don't think people understand. They're like, oh, you wouldn't want Ben Johnson or Harbaugh? I'm like, just want calm.
Yeah.
Just not hectic. That's all I want.
We're at a point with the Raiders where we're celebrating they're playing hard. So I will take that for a bit.
Yeah, I not to kind of derail to a Raider pod, but everyone's like, you don't want the pick? I'm like, for what? To get Alex Leatherwood? Like, I want to win out, keep the coach, keep the GM because the players like them, and then let's just go into the offseason and figure it out.
Yeah, like this, like there's so many bad teams. Like, what's losing out going to do, right? Like, it's
you're not getting Caleb, you're not getting Drake, you're not getting Marvin. Everything else is a crapshoot.
Yeah, get the fourth best quarterback in the draft. I'm good, man. Like, no, I agree.
Worst team, I'll take this one. I mean, it's the team that just won't let their fans have Wingstop. It's the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, that's mine as well. 9 wins in the calendar year of 2023 between last year and this year, or last season and this season. 9.
It's man, I could almost do them for letdown team too because there's talent. There is talent on this team.
That's the worst part of this. They're not even trying to be bad. You know, like they're not trying to be like championship contender, but this was supposed to be, okay, we've got the guys, let's start out of this. And now it's awful.
I thought they were a play-in team.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were a play-in team, and they brought in Monty Williams this year to a big contract. Cade was back. I love Jaden Ivey. Durant's good. Wiseman showed glimpses. I like Isaiah Stewart. There's guys I like on this team.
Bogdanovich will be good until he's 100. Like,
Like, I was like, do I know basketball anymore? Do I know talent?
Yeah, it's bad. It's really, really bad. I like to on the day we're recording this, I was on 960 and I actually did a segment today like, hey, is it okay to just quit being a fan of a team like forever just because of how bad they are? Because that's how bad this Pistons team is that like you could legitimately be like, yeah, I would like it if they won more than 2 games in a year. So I'm going to cheer for the Pacers now.
Yeah, it's man. Luckily for them, they have the Lions, which is a weird sentence to say. But luckily for Detroit fans, they have that. And I don't know what the fix is because I thought when Cade came back, this will be, maybe they won't be a playoff team. They're going to push for the play-in. Yeah, and I didn't think they would be this bad. And the thing is, there's no gold at the end of the rainbow this year unless you just make the franchise decision that if we get the first pick, no matter what we're going to do, we're going to take Bronny, the lure LeBron.
Yeah, which I don't think is the way to go about things, quite honestly. But like, and the thing is, the other part of it too is they did bottom out for Wemby last year, and they probably would have been the most fun Wemby team. You know, like to have Cade and Wemby pick and roll 1,000 times a game would have been so much fun. Instead, he goes to a team with no point guard, and now this team has a point guard and nothing else.
Yeah, and Asur's good too. Again, there's talent on this team. Yeah. It's completely frustrating for me to watch this team. Yeah. The biggest letdown for a team.
Milwaukee Bucks for me. Like to the 1 seed, you have the best player in the world. I just like to go out in that fashion. And then like there's a talk like, oh man, is Giannis going to sign? They go out and make a big trade. And like, I like Lillard, and I think they have still yet to fully unlock what that offense could be out there, but they've kind of changed their identity and they don't really know what they are yet. And while I love Aiden English as an assistant with the Raptors, this feels like a lot for his first coaching job, and maybe it'll turn around, but it's just, at no point has this felt like, okay, the Bucks have both hands on the wheel and everything's fine. It's kind of just been a year of just, and that's not how you want your organization to feel.
You kind of talked about them earlier, and it is the LA Chargers.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I've just like, what am I missing? I mean, I had the rant that we had on the 7K pod on Monday. Khalil Mack is back. Khalil Mack's having one of his best defensive seasons. I mean, Mike Williams gets hurt, but Austin Eckler's still great. Keenan Allen was having a good season. You have a good quarterback in Justin Herbert. This is not a team that should be sub 500 right now, and you have a good defense there. And you're in a city too where no one cares about you, which is makes
they
it
are
even
so
worse.
irrelevant there. Yeah. And the division's there, right? Like, I mean, it's not for them now, but the Chiefs have not been the Chiefs in capital letters this year. No. Like the division, they very easily could have Miami'd this thing. and have that division kind of wrapped up by now. And instead, they're looking for answers, and they're going to look for a big time head coach to try to come in and steal some headlines out there in LA. We'll see, but man, yeah, it's tough out there right now.
Yeah, it's there's a few other ones, and to a degree, like the Bucks were on my list for sure. I wanted to do the damn Clippers, but they're winning.
Playing well.
They're playing well, so I couldn't do the Clippers. The worst jersey, I'm just saying, pretty much any Nike City edition for the NBA.
Yeah,
there's a lot of bad ones.
That's fair. Just the NHL going to Fanatics in general. I don't know if you saw the picture going around of the Detroit Red Wings retro jersey where the Yzerman number 19 was down on the like piping, like the wraparound on the bottom. So just like the NHL in general. But if I'm going to pick one specific one, it is going to be the Edmonton Oilers Heritage Classic jerseys. I hated those, and they went with the classic. Oh, it's the Heritage Classic, so let's go with brown gloves and brown pants. I'm sure I think someone said, oh, it's a reference to whatever. You could just not, right? Like, I don't think anyone's going out and, oh, wow, what a cool reference to the Edmonton such and suches of the 1800s. Like, you can just not do that. Just make a jersey. Like, the Flames, I think, did pretty well with theirs. Edmonton suck.
Mine, I am going to go just with one, and it was a tough one because there's some really bad ones. I freaking hate these Wizards district jerseys.
Yes.
They're so ugly. You had the cherry blossom ones last year that were so awesome.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it kind of goes, I'm going to get ready to bury the Wizards here in a little bit, so I won't go too off just now. But they are so bad. And they had that picture yesterday with Kuz and Poole. I'm like, these are just gross. I also don't like the Spurs ones as well. Spurs with orange is weird.
Yeah. I don't like that one. Atlanta's Blues, I don't like.
Yeah, I don't like that one either. I hate the Denver one as well with the number.
I don't like that they can't keep some of them. Like Miami all the Miami Vice ones were perfect. And quite frankly, the Miami Vice ones should just be Miami's jerseys. Like they got those, but then it's like, oh, well, we need a new one every year. And so now it's like the paper cutout letter things that are dumb. And like the Raptors, like the gold, the all gold this year is okay. But they've had like some couple with they have the Raptors triangle thing, and having that in black and gold and the OVO stuff, perfect, fine, love it. But they keep having to come out with new ones, and they all kind of keep sucking.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the Raptors too. The Raptors were close, and there's like, okay, I get it. Drake's part of your team. Can we move on? Something else.
Can we do something purple or a blue and white or something?
Huskies, or like something like this. I'm over. Like, yeah, I get it. Drake plays for your team. Or was a part of your team. I get it. Cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Worst transaction. I'll go in this one. I look at it as a team. It was kind of a lose-lose trade, and it's the Jordan Poole, Chris Paul trade.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because holy crap, Jordan Poole is bad.
Oh, he's so bad. Yeah.
I mean, as someone that got to root against him in the divisional last year matchup with the Lakers and the Warriors. Every time we take a shot, I'm like, you keep on doing that, Jordan. Appreciate it, buddy.
By all means. Yeah.
And now just watching Wizards basketball on League Pass, which I rarely do unless they're facing a good team, it is just comical. Like this is a guy that just doesn't get it. And you know, I could go about the list of players I've seen, but it's a guy that thinks the world revolves around him in a way that maybe I haven't seen since Monta Ellis. But Monta Ellis was good. And this guy... Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. I'm interrupting for no reason.
This guy just... The slip the other day was alone. And we're not even halfway through the season yet, and I could already give you probably 6 to 5 minutes of bad Jordan Poole play.
Yeah. It's awful. Like driving in and then dribbling around and stopping up for an open three and getting it kind of blocked and all, like, just it's all terrible. And like Monta Ellis, like, he had this idea that the world revolved around him. He also like played for an offense that put up like 150 points a night, and was eventually winning games in Golden State. And I am forever a Monta Ellis super fan. Absolutely love it. So yes, I will always defend the great honor of Monta Ellis. Yeah, my worst
really
trade.
quickly, Peter. The other side of that too. Chris Paul's been fine for the Warriors, but they're just soulless. They're just a soulless organization now, and I don't know what they are. They're falling apart. Like, you had this piece of that Jordan Poole trade that was a trade asset for some people that thought, hey, this is a young guy that maybe we can work. You could have gone to the Hornets and done a sign and trade with PJ Washington and Gordon Hayward. That would have brought in a different economy to your team. Instead, you tried to roll the dice with Chris Paul, and we all said, oh, surely they're not going to do this. Like, they're smart enough not to have this. Bob Myers isn't walking through that door anymore as the GM. Mike Dunleavy's there now. And they figured they'd roll it out with Chris Paul and Steph. And it's just been really weird, and we're starting to see the fall in the Warriors. Bad drafts, not taking Franz, and some other bad drafts on them.
Yeah,
the high
Ball as well.
Yeah, not taking Ball and taking Wiseman affected it, but that trade was doo-doo.
It's kind of the end of it, right? Like it does feel like it's coming down to the end. Now, Steph with an all-time performance the other night, like he's going to drag this team kicking and screaming. I still think they make the play in. But that just doesn't feel like that the Warriors of old. That is 100%. It feels like the old Warriors.
Yeah. Where are you going, sir?
I'm going to the NFL, and it is the Carolina Panthers trading for the first overall pick to get Bryce Young.
That's really bad.
Whenever you trade for the first overall pick and then land in a spot where you would have also had the first overall pick, it's bad. And then when you look at it, they basically right now, as it stands, and I feel pretty confident they're going to be the first overall pick by the time things are done. They will have traded basically Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, the 9th overall pick, which turned into Jalen Carter. And then a 2023 second and a 2025 second. So Caleb Williams, Jalen Carter, DJ Moore for Bryce Young.
Yikes.
That's a problem. The
Panthers have had what? 1 second of lead this entire year? 1.5 times of the lead this year?
Yeah, it's awful there. And like I don't think it's all on Bryce. He hasn't looked good. Like it feels like he starts his reads by the time he gets to the top of his drop. Like it's step. Okay, what's out there? And then he's getting the hell beat out of him. But the offensive line is bad. The weapons around him are bad. They need to invest around him, which, I mean, having the first overall pick probably would have helped. But yeah, it's really, really bad in Carolina right now. And this trade is going to go down, like probably along with like the Washington trading all these picks for RG3. There's going to be some other ones, but like, yeah, it's going to be one of the worst ones ever, I think, by the time we're all said and done.
That's a great one too. I think those were the 2 worst trades this year. I think we nailed it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Again, there wasn't like this year. There wasn't like the Rudy Gobert or like the Russell Wilson, although that's maybe okay now. But there wasn't, and even the Rudy Gobert one, it's like maybe this is okay now. There wasn't like this albatross trade that happened this year. I would say the worst one is the Blue Jays not getting Ohtani.
Right. Yeah. That was The worst trade was Soto going to the Yankees because he didn't go to Toronto.
Worst game. There's a few choices on here. And I guess this is kind of personal preference. There's some, I mean, there's some bad Carolina games this year. For example, some really bad Thursday night football games. I went to the in-season tournament, Lakers and Pelicans.
Okay.
Like, hey, yeah, this is going to be everything. This game's going to be great. It's Zion versus LeBron. And it was just nothing.
Yeah.
It was like,
that's fair.
Absolutely nothing of what Adam Silver had hoped for this. And really, they only got one good game out of this entire kind of Vegas side of things. I think the in-season tournament as a whole was successful. I'm still not sure if the Lakers should have put up the banner or not. I'm still mixed on that because, what Kobe said in the past. But, for some guys like Austin Rivers and them that never won a championship, I get it. But, man, that game was done within the first quarter, and it was just not an enjoyable basketball game after that.
Yeah, I am pro banner, by the way. Not like the Lakers shouldn't put up division banners or conference banners, but it's like they won a tournament that featured every team in the league. It's not the biggest one, but it was a tournament that everyone played in, and they won it. So, like, soccer teams celebrate the FA Cup. They're allowed to celebrate this one. People especially in 2023 where like the world is burning and there's wars everywhere and like everything's too expensive. Celebrate victories, man. Enjoy it. Like the more people are having fun with things, the better. I'm going a bit of a different route. Honorable mention to the Jets-Giants game this year, that if all the players
that's a good pick.
It's honorable mention for me.
That was so bad.
But yeah, if all the players were wearing leather helmets, it would have made more sense. Mine, it is it's not technically a game, it's an event, and it's barely sports. But it's the Logan Paul, Dylan Dennis, and KSI fought someone. And that was, I feel like, and I know Jake Paul came back, but he fought a legitimate boxer. Legitimate boxer. That felt like the tipping point of these celebrity boxing things. And it felt like okay, we're done with this now. Like, these fights sucked. The buildup for this was stupid. None of this was fun. Why are we still doing these things? And now, like, you hear Logan Paul say, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to focus more on the WWE now. I think that was by design. So I like this. It was truly atrocious. I feel so bad for someone who spent any of their hard-earned dollars on this because it was that bad. And it was the first time where, like, I don't like the Paul brothers. They're not my cup of tea. I understand the draw for a lot of people to them. But I can't get behind it. But like this was the first time where I think even people who are on their side were like, oh, this is bad. This is really, really bad. And we need to stop these immediately.
You would like this week's South Park episode then?
Oh, good. I am so behind. I need to do a lot of binging of South Park. I need to get caught up on a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, this week's episode was quite good for that. I'm going to change my pick to the Giants and the Jets one. That game, I remember,
it set the sport back. Like that, there was that was so bad.
But that Paul one is great. Biggest heartbreak this year, Peter?
It's the Jays not getting Ohtani. I don't
care. Let's be personal.
Yeah, like, and it's not. If it would have happened a week before, then it wouldn't have even crossed my mind, right? Like, it would have been like, it was kind of neat that he went to Dunedin, but whatever. But he was a Blue Jay. Like, he was, as far as we knew, he was en route to Toronto. And like, people making fun of Blue Jays fans for getting excited. It's like, it's not our fault. Credible sources were telling us that it was happening. And then it was a dude from Shark Tank or the Dragon's Den. And then he signs with the Dodgers like the next day. And it was just like, he was there. He was ours. It was like this moment that transcended, that could have like launched the sport into a new stratosphere in this country. And it was like, after a couple of real down years for the Blue Jays in terms of like expectations, right? Like they've had down years before, but this was down years with expectations. To have all of that taken away was really, really heartbreaking. And I'm not going to be, I'm not going to go to the games in general, but I'm not going to be one who will boo Shohei. I'll watch Dodgers games and enjoy it. It's going to be like, to see him on the Dodgers is going to be really cool, but it just, he was ours and it was right there, and then it wasn't.
Kind of like you with the jerseys. I had, my birthday is in April, and there's a Laker and Raptor game that was 5 days before that game. I'm like, well, I'm going to go to that game, and then I'll figure something out, because then I'll go to the Jays opener, and Ohtani will be there, so I'll get to see LeBron for the first time, and I'll see Ohtani at the same time wearing a Jays jersey. This is going to be, and you know what? Yeah, maybe I will get a white. I don't have a white Jays jersey, so that'll be my Ohtani jersey that I have that day. Maybe I'll even buy it at the stadium that day, because that'll be nice and fresh. And I can say I bought a jersey from Rogers, the new polished Rogers Center. This is going to be so great. And as the day went on, you had this weird, like, okay, yeah, maybe. It actually, as the week went on, right? Because it started to rage. You're like, this is, like, we're in this. Like, we're in this thing. And then the Soto stuff happened. And Soto went to the Yanks. And you're like, okay, well, that sucks. But, yeah, you know, we're in this Ohtani thing. And why wouldn't he want to be here, you know? And then the reports started happening.
Like, MLB Network throws up like the pie chart, and it's 60% Blue Jays, like 30% Dodgers, and it's like 1% for 9 other teams. Like it's all those different things building to this moment where it's like, oh my God, they might get him. And then they just didn't. And it was over.
When the MLB reporter said he was on the plane, I got emotional. I'm like, that's when I was like, it's happening. Holy crap. This is happening. We are going to, this is And I was like, is this the biggest transaction in the history of Canadian sports? Like, I couldn't even think what was second. I'm like, is it Tavares to the Jays? Is that the
like
biggest one?
it's basically like the biggest Canadian transaction to that point was Gretzky leaving. Like that's basically what it was. And so yeah, like he will forever be a Blue Jay on MLB The Show games that I get. But yeah, and like you said, like during the day, it was, oh hey, like we're tracking this private jet that kind of matches what he would fly, and it's going from where he lives to Toronto. And Yusei Kikuchi is like it was just this slow build, and then in the middle of the day, like you're refreshing things, and there's a couple like, oh yeah, maybe this is happening, and then it was the Morosi tweet of like, yeah, he's en route to Toronto. And you had the Dodgers Nation report saying our sources are telling us it's done. Like you had all these things leading up to this crescendo of he's not on the plane, and then it was like, okay, well he's not on the plane, but like they still have to be in it, right? And then they weren't.
And then how much you get love to Dunedin? He's like Dunedin was a big thing, and he was blown away by Dunedin.
Yeah, and I do think the Jays were legitimately in on him, and I think he was legitimately considering Toronto. But I do think they would have had to legitimately outspend the Dodgers. And like I thought the Dodgers would want 600, and the Blue Jays would go to 650, and that would be what it was. And then the Dodgers going to 700 never entered my mind. And apparently, like Jeff Passan was on Russillo last week, saying like the Ohtani camp got that offer from the Dodgers and took it to the Blue Jays, and the Giants and the Angels as well. And then the Angels said no. But the Blue Jays and Giants did say, yeah, 100% we would do that. And then he chose the Dodgers. So I think him like taking that to Toronto to be like, hey, would you guys do this? Does show that there was legitimate consideration that he was in on it.
Yeah, I'm not mad at Atkins at this one. No. And I know he gets a lot of heat at times. He did everything. And I think it shows, and whether they're true or not, but in the Lewis Roberts rumors or in Cody Bellinger or in Christian Yelich, right? Of, okay, well, yeah, we got to go and still try to go get someone. And because they still know the time, like, I think the thing is, too, with all this Jay stuff is, I know there's a lot of disappointment. Number one, that day was great. I love that day. As much as it ended in heartbreak, it was fun. That was a fun day as a Blue Jays fan. It didn't end the way I wanted to, but to get to see the togetherness and the excitement that was there was awesome. That was great to see how much the Blue Jays fans are there and to get to talk to your friends that are Blue Jays fans. That was awesome. Yeah, again, it didn't end the way we wanted, kind of like how Kawhi didn't end for a lot of people. You wanted him to go to the Raptors. I wanted him to go to the Lakers. He went to the Clippers. Seems kind of similar to the way that did. But remember, too, this is not a bad Blue Jays team. This is a team that had a disappointing season, a postseason, but they are a good team.
Yeah, there's a foundation there. It does need to be built upon. Like they can't enter 2024 as currently constructed.
No.
There needs there needs to be another big thing here. But they aren't like four big things away. They have built this up where like you add a Robert or a Bellinger, then you're all of a sudden like, okay, this is back to being a team that's contending for the East again. It's just like if you had Shohei, it's a team that's contending for the World Series immediately.
Most disappointing athlete.
Obviously a lot of ways you could go. This one probably recency bias. I'm going Draymond Green. Like I think a lot of the spiral that we are talking about in Golden State has a lot to do with Draymond's personal spiral right now. And I think if he was kind of him still, like the guy who was one of the best defensive players in the league last year still, if he's still that guy, then this fall isn't happening so quickly. But it's exhausting for everyone in Golden State. It's he while not the most efficient scorer or anything like that, his offensive abilities, I think, kind of do help this team out a little bit. And like, it's just everything feels off kilter without him there. And so, and it's all his doing, right? Like it's all him just losing it. And Zach Lowe made a really good point. Like this was someone who, like, first and foremost, you were going to talk about one of the best defensive players of all time on a championship team. And then, oh, and by the way, he was a bit of a hothead. Now it's going to be, he was a hothead who was one of the best defensive players of all time, who's going to go into the Hall of Fame on a team that won a bunch of championships. Like it is now a first sentence part of his description for his legacy forever.
My pick too. When the Lakers faced the Dubs this year in the playoffs, he really scared me. Steph obviously did, but he was second. It wasn't Clay. It was Dre.
Yeah.
And it's just the effects that he has all over the court. And you've even seen, as disappointing as this Warrior season has been so far, how effective he is on the court still, and how much it's hurting them right now to not have Draymond. He is really hurt with the Warriors, a team that was struggling to figure out their identity this year and what Kuminga can be and what some of the bigs can be in this team, and just kind of threw it away, right? And I see people do the jokes about the WWE stuff and everything like that, but like the Nurkic stuff, I remember what happened. I'm gonna apologize for people like that I'm gonna curse here, but I just yelled out like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me, man!" Like this is like, and for Silver too, really needed this. I really needed to make this indefinite, because he had been looking, even with the jaw suspension, had been looking like he was leaning towards the players and being way too friendly. And it was like, dude, this is getting dumb. Like, this is getting dumb. I can't remember who was the NHL player a few years ago that was really unsafe too.
Oh, geez.
Is this the guy that was dating Alicia Cuthbert or married to Alicia Cuthbert?
Oh, well, Steve Avery kind of lost his mind.
It wasn't enough.
Yeah, Avery lost his mind for a while there.
Avery,
for sure.
There you go.
Yeah. There's been a few guys who've been like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like, you don't deserve to be a player anymore, right? And this is stuff too of. So I had a conversation with someone saying, "You're overreacting." I'm like, in the last, I think it was like 5 month span, this dude jumped in someone's chest, stomped them on the chest, choked out Rudy Gobert, and now sucker punched Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah.
Like
it's
these are not
unhinged.
coincidences. Like, oh, well, this happened and this happened. Like, these are not coincidences. And these aren't just like acts of just pushing someone or what. These are aggressive acts that you do not see in the game of basketball.
Yeah. No, and no one falls like that into punching Nurkic.
No.
All of it. Like it's just it is a guy who does need to kind of get a control on this sort of thing. And so I'm happy he's getting that, but it's put a dynasty on hold, and probably, quite frankly, ended it. It honestly probably ended when he punched Jordan Poole, which is the start of all of this, right? Like it probably ended there, but this is really speeding up the decline here.
Like I doubt it will, but part of me is just like too of, we know he has this Turner deal. Rather Turner, I mean, that'll be a big thing in sports next year, is this NBA deal. That could be, one of the biggest things of next year. And now the NBA Turner deal is going to determine streaming rights for the NFL and where things go, if they go to Amazon or Apple, and how much that's going to change the game as far as how we watch sports with this NBA deal. But so, like, to a point now, I'm like, I don't want you to be on Turner when you retire. Why do I want to listen to you? Why do I want to listen to you?
No, completely agree.
Like, because people are like, oh, well, Chuck did this. I'm like, Chuck wasn't like this.
No. Chuck was out there. But like, this is like dangerous stuff that you're doing. And it's just like, it doesn't need to happen on a basketball court.
And I guess that kind of goes to my next award, which is Draymond as well, for most annoying athlete.
Yeah, that's it. Definitely goes side by side. I went Aaron Rodgers.
You know what? I like it. I'm going there.
This whole thing of, I can come back. You guys, you don't understand modern medicine, and you don't understand like all the stuff that I know. I know my body, and then it's so clear he's not coming back. He's like, no, I think it'd be ridiculous if I came back. Like, I'm not close to being healthy. Why is everyone saying I could come back? Like, he was so desperate to be in the spotlight this year. And like, I love the Pat McAfee show and so much that McAfee has been able to do this year. But this was an absolute miss. Having this guy on every week and just giving life to this whole story out there in New York. Like, just come back next year, just be like everyone else, and it's fine. You don't need all of this attention. And I think it really bothered him how much attention Kelsey was getting. And it just kind of ballooned from there. So this whole year based around this guy was really annoying.
Yeah, even like the Mr. Pfizer comment was really annoying, and just trying to get the headline in that we knew when the Jets faced the Chiefs that he was not liking that Taylor was going to get more attention to him. It was like, she's probably the biggest, most famous person on planet Earth right now. So I don't think anything's going to change, Aaron, about that. Yeah,
like one of the most famous human beings of all time, right? Like getting into Michael Jackson levels. So that's not changing. And it was just it was desperate and kind of pathetic, quite frankly.
Most disappointing moment you worked this year?
So I want to preface this by saying this whole tournament was so much fun. And I had a blast being a part of it. It was all just disappointing for me personally. I worked at the Rocky Mountain Hockey Classic out at Winsport. I called 13 games over the 5 days. I had a blast. The hockey was so great. Everyone was so nice to me. The one issue I had, I worked 13 games. 2 of them were within 2 goals, and everything else was a blowout. Like it just so happened that every game I got to, like I got real familiar with the mercy rules of this tournament, which was up by 7, and it's straight time. I learned that very quickly and got a lot of practice out of it. Again, the organizers were great. Winsport's a world-class facility. HN Live are some of the easiest people on the planet to work with. Like just on down the line, everything was great. And then I'd get to the game and it's like, well, the shots are 50-10, but boy, it's only 5-1. So anything can happen here. And like you can't be like mean about it because it's 15-year-old kids or whatever it was. So it's like, not that I would be if it was adults, but like it was just like there was so much high level hockey being played at this tournament and such exciting games being played at this tournament with how they set up tiebreakers and stuff like that. And it was just, I got none of it. And it was just like, for me, it was like, God,
yeah,
like karmically to build off of that, every game I get for the Dogs this year is going to be a walk off. I feel like just to balance it off, I have to get that this year.
I think people too that aren't on the inside of being a sports broadcaster. I called 10 games for Canada Soccer this year for their like the FTF soccer for the young people kind of coming up. And you call that many games, people are like, oh, you're just talking, like, but it's just you start getting in your mind. It's like it goes in the corner, and they kick it back, and you're just like, no, I gotta give these athletes everything, and you want to do it, but when you start having blowouts and they're not close games, you're just like, I want everyone to do the best, not get hurt, have these great games, but I just want to have a close game so I can get as excited because I'm on hour 9 here of watching and these athletes.
You feel like an idiot going shoots and scores 9-3. Like you feel silly doing that. But yeah, and like there are times like again, I love calling baseball, but you can kind of fall into just calling what you see. And so on every scorebook I have now, I write at the top of it, you're an entertainer. Because it's like, hey, by the way, you're kind of making this entertaining. Like this has to be fun. Like I want them to, if nothing else, the people watching it to have enjoyed the time that they had listening to me babble on about their son and or daughter and or granddaughter or just someone you're a fan of. And so that I had to remind myself a couple of times, like, hey, this is still cool that their parents in Anaheim get to watch them play here. So let's wrap this one up a little bit here.
So I definitely sympathize with that side of things. Mine was not the win of this team, but the results of what happened from it. And it was the CCA championships. No, the ACAC semifinal championships. It's the Keano Huskies versus the State Trojans. Keano is undefeated. And them and the Trojans go like this. The Trojans beat them the year beforehand to win the ACAC championship. At that time, their 5th ACAC championship in a row. This is the Trojans trying to get their 6th. Trojans already have an automatic bid to go to the national championships because they're hosting it. This was an electrifying game. I lost my voice. I had to call that Canada West final the next day. So there was a lot of tea going to that. It's, again, Peter knows of calling these random games. So my biggest disappointment isn't really the game itself. The game was great. It's that Keano lost. And then the next day, they lost because they were so heartbroken because they lost to the Trojans and they needed to beat the Trojans because if they didn't, they weren't going to get the automatic bid to go to nationals. And they were undefeated all year. And there's a lot of great kids in this team. Sean Michael Clancy was the athlete, the player of the year in that league. And Jeremy, who's their coach and is a great guy, and shouts to Jeremy. And it was just so heartbreaking. Again, being along with the State Trojans and kind of buying in a little bit to the rivalry, you're kind of like, oh, you're trying to be non-biased still, right? When I go into these, especially when we're at a neutral thing for CCA or ACAC, as you know, Peter, you want to try to be as neutral as you can. And I'm trying to get the fact, like, you're a State alumni, you kind of want State to win. Like, no. When I go, and the worst part is my heart in a way. I get to know these players because I see them all the time, and they, get used to your broadcast style. So that was my most disappointed was Keano not getting a chance to showcase what they could do at nationals. As much as I didn't want State to lose, State was going to nationals no matter what. Maybe it would have been extra adversity for State to be like, okay, we lost this, but we can still win nationals for Marty and Chuck's last year. So that's mine. It's for the Canto Huskies not being able to take this undefeated season and at least have a chance to go to nationals.
Yeah, no, that's that whole thing could be really, really heartbreaking. Like this happened, so now X, Y, and Z have happened. That really adds to those sorts of moments for sure.
And then the biggest blooper of the year. Again, I don't really think there was anything that really. Oh, actually, there is. I just remembered it right now. It's Jordan Poole falling for me.
Oh yeah, no, that's really good. They're just like a random one. I'm going to be very selfish on mine. But a random like honorable mention. There was it was a random. It was Clippers against the Nuggets. And the Clippers had made this like they were down by a bunch. They came back. They had the lead. Then Denver put Jokic back in, and he was like, "Oh, that's fun." Took the lead back. Clippers are like they're down by 3. It's late. They have this opportunity to tie the game. Paul George puts up a shot. There's 18 seconds left. Kevin Harlan's on the call, ready to lose his mind, and it's a wedgie. And it was just this this whole like like it turned from this tense moment to so funny so quickly. And so the moment of it built it up for me. I do have a personal one that's my biggest blooper of the year. One of the things you've talked about, I've been lucky enough to do a number of things this year. One of them is I've got back into ring announcing again, semi-regularly for, I guess they would consider me regular, so I can consider it too, for Wild Rose Wrestling.
Oh, wow. Lucky you.
It's been fun. And the second show I did back for them. The first show I did was a blooper because between like getting to the shows and everything, like 8 people got sick. So we had like a 5-person card and like 2 people had to wrestle. It was very indie, but everyone made the best of it, and it was cool to see. But we did one where right before intermission there was a hardcore match. And after the bout, Steven Styles ends up victorious. But this was one where light tubes were used and like just blood everywhere. And so Steven, having just won this match, and like the angle at the end was that these are 2 longtime bitter rivals, and now they're going to finally bury the hatchet. And Mega Powers style, only with more glass shards. Shake hands at the end. And so I give Steve the microphone, and like we have a backup, but it didn't even dawn on me to get a backup. And so I take the mic back from him and like I make a joke like, "Hey, we got some cleanup to do. It's gonna be intermission time," and it took like almost an hour. But the self blooper for me is that after I was like, all right, and intermission, and I'm someone like I put the microphone right on my chin, and I was like, all right, we'll be back with intermission right after this. And I take the mic away and I put it down, and it still feels like I have it in my hand, and I still feel like I have it here because Steven bled all over this thing. Oh, and no. So I have his blood on my chin and his blood all over my hands. And my wife was so sweet. She had brought a bunch of people there to watch me do this because it was the weekend of my birthday. The weekend after the F1 race. And so she brought a bunch of people there, and it was my first time getting to chat with them. And I was like, I need to go wash the Legion out of soap, and I'll be right back. And I was like, I don't know how to clean that without it exploding. So someone else take it. I'll get the backup mic when I come back. So that was a personal blooper for me this year.
I love it. That's a great story. That's a great way to, for my personal blooper, I guess it's still one that haunts me. Probably one of the best dunks of the Dino season. Goes downhill, throws a sick reverse dunk. What a dunk by Tezo! Yeah, Santiago got a right dunk there. I'm like, God damn it.
Oh, man.
Because it was one of those things when the jerseys go, both players have single digits on their jerseys. Both players look really similar. And didn't get to see it off the steel as well as I wanted to from my angle. So you kind of just like, I have no idea. I'm 50-50 in this.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. And I was like, son of a gun. Not quite blood on my chin from a light tube match, but that was probably mine. I was like, one of those you're just like, you and I talked about this when we got to do some Okotoks games this year. Just like, and those just fester on you for a while.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few home runs I called. I'm like, and it's 4-1. and the scoreboard would go on, because sometimes you look at that Siemens Stadium scoreboard, it's like, I mean, it's 5-1.
Yeah. No, I had one of those this year. The Dogs were down. The Dogs were down 6-4 going into one of the innings, and I think it was Lethbridge scored in the top half of the inning to make it 7-4, and then the Dogs came back and hit a 2-run home run. And I was like, way back and gone, and this game is tied 7-6 for Lethbridge here in the fifth. And it's just like that, because it like with your dunk, like it lined up perfectly. Like I had the cadence and the everything, and it was perfect, and it all happened right in front of me, and the buildup was great. And then it was, oh hey dummy, they scored in the last inning. So thanks for that.
The one that made me feel so much better this year for a broadcasting blooper was when the Duke beat my Tar Heels this year, but Schulman, who may be my favorite broadcaster, and he's like, and what a great win for the Blue Jays. Calling in I'm like, if Dan Schulman's messing up after all this time, I feel like I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like we say like 5,000 words a game. I feel like a couple of them are probably not going to be perfect.
And we said
you
almost
just hope the important ones get it right.
Absolutely. And we said almost 5,000 words on this one. Make sure you go check out Couch Potato Diary. Peter, like I said, it is so hard. I did maybe 3 solo pods this year. They are not an easy thing to do. So anyone that can do it, it is an absolute talent to do it. So check Peter on all the platforms that he has. Couch Potato Diary is also on the Fan 960. And as I mentioned, copious other things. Anything else to plug, Peter?
No, that's basically it. Yeah, just popping back in on 960. I'm not, as much as everyone thinks I am. I promise I'm not a full-time employee. It sometimes seems like it, but no, I just pop in every now and then to remind them. Yeah, follow me social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Primetime Klein. And you can find Couch Potato Diary wherever you find this. I put the shows up on YouTube this year as well, because apparently I thought I needed to do more stuff on this on my own. So you get to watch me just sit there and talk for a while as well if you need. And the show is also on Facebook. So find me in all those social media spots.
And you can find everything on Fresh Take on the Fresh Take Network. We have a year in review, I think, on everything coming up here. We have the wrestling one. We have the pop culture one. We even have a best of food.
Oh, nice.
For this year, which is a first time, and looking forward to all of that. Thank you to Peter as always. Until next time, everyone, cheers and enjoy the day, people.
Thank you for listening to the Fresh Take Network. Follow us on social media platforms at Fresh Take 42.